Roll call, please.
Mayor Breeden?
Here.
Councilman Mauer?
Here.
Councilman Thomas?
Here.
Councilwoman Stevens?
Here.
Councilman Martin?
Here.
5 present. We have a quorum.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. Anybody?
So moved.
Second.
Do we need to vote?
Yeah.
Push your button.
Okay, 1 is yes.
Do we? Oh, thank you. I forgot. Okay.
Push mine.
Okay, we approve the agenda. Public comments. Do I have to read this even if there's nobody here? The time, all right. The time is reserved for members of the public to address the council relative to matters on closed session. Comments being limited to 5 minutes per person. Seeing nobody here, we will go into closed session. Thank you. Let's go. Let us go. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to call the meeting to order. And who would? I know the perfect one. Scott, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Please all rise. To the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
We're going to ask if Mr. Costner would be so kind to lead us in our invocation tonight.
Mr. Thomas. Anybody who wishes, if you could please bow your head and join me in a moment of prayer. Anybody who wishes, would you like to bow your head and join me in a moment of prayer? Thanks, Dave. Lord, thank you for another day, and these are trying times for a lot of people abroad, across the nation, and in our town. There's a lot of divisiveness and conflict, but let us not forget that our one job above all others is to show love for one another as we love you. And there's going to be more days to come, and we all live in this town, and we all love this town, and regardless of how opinions may differ or perspectives may differ, let's remember that the first thing above all others is to love others as we love you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You please be seated. And council, if you'll join us all together at the podium.
Get it lined up with those lines. There we go. We have a proclamation of the City of Ridgecrest, California, honoring National American Indian Heritage Month, sponsored by the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution American Indians Committee. Whereas the history and culture of our great nation have been significantly influenced by American Indians and indigenous peoples, and whereas the contributions of American Indians have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today, and whereas their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of our rich legacy throughout the United States, and whereas Native American Awareness Week began in 1976 and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by President George Bush in August of 1990, designated the month of November as National American Indian Heritage Month. And whereas in honor of National American Indian Heritage Month, community celebrations as well as numerous cultural, artistic, educational, and historical activities have been planned. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest does hereby proclaim November as National American Indian Heritage Month in Ridgecrest and urge all citizens to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Proclaimed the 7th day of November, 2018, signed by the Mayor and the 4 City Council members. Present that to you.
Thank you. Do you want to say a few words? If you want.
Well, thank you, City Council. On November 17th, the Cherokee community of Central California will do a native gathering. We will have the drumming and singers and dancers, as well as a guest speaker from the Cherokee Nation who's coming out from Tahlequah. You're all welcome to come. It's at Upjohn Park, November 17th, from 10 to 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say thank you, Council and Mayor, for your continued support of the Daughters of the American Revolution as we recognize important events such as Native American Indian Heritage Month. Thank you.
Thank you.
She wants to see it.
Turn it around?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank
This is, help if I got up to the podium. This is recognition of service for Mindy Beck. Mindy, would you come forward, please? Is Mindy not here? Okay, well, we're recognizing her for 25 years of service to the City of Ridgecrest. So we will thank you, Mindy. Okay, next.
I have the lovely honor of recognizing a nice, polite, kind young lady that has given 10 years of service to this outstanding city, and that is the one and only Miss Lori Bowers.
Speech.
No, I'm just. Thank you.
We can shake your hand, can't we? Thank you for all your work. Thank you. Knuckle sandwich.
Do you want to pose with the council, Lori?
Sure. Okay. Right in the middle.
Okay, can you guys scrunch it a little bit?
Scrunch. Scrunch.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. May I report out?
I have. I'm sorry. We didn't.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda. Okay.
City Council met in closed session on one item that is described in the agenda. Direction was given to staff. No final action was taken.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll do public comment. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not appear already on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, City Council may not take action on an item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Is there any public comment? Please.
Am I on? Oh, yeah, I'm on. I am Senior Senator Advocate Linda Fuller for Eastern Kern County. As a representative and an advocate of seniors, I can't say enough nice things about the senior center and the parking lot. It is fabulous. Every time I go by there, I want to cry. So, good job. Kudos to you.
Thank you, Linda, very much.
Oh, congratulations. Excuse me.
Congratulations to you. You are our California representative now.
I am.
So thank you. Sir.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Smith. I live at 708 Tricia. I reached out to Councilwoman Stevens earlier today, and she encouraged me to come down to raise a concern with you. I live in a neighborhood, most of you probably know it as the Dieter Track. It's been there a long time. I live about a block and a half from Las Flores Elementary School. Over the past couple of months, we've had a number of coyotes in that area. I came home a couple of weeks ago to find one on my front porch. They don't look well. They look sickly. I've heard a number of people say they have mange. I'm not real familiar with mange, but that's what they're reporting. Over the weekend, I came across 3 girls on the sidewalk in front of the Lutheran Church at the corner of Norma and Las Flores, stopped dead in their tracks, scared out of their wits because a coyote was about 50 to 100 feet in front of them crossing the road on the sidewalk on their side of the road. When I found the coyote on my porch, I called animal control. I think they must not have been open. The police department answered, and I was informed that animal control does not deal with coyotes. They are wild animals, and that I need to contact the Fish and Game. And they said, we've got somebody here, but we don't know how to get a hold of them. But there is somebody here from Fish and Game in the valley. After a bunch of bureaucratic phone tag, I finally ended up talking to an office in Fresno, whose response was, well, you can get a hunter's license and shoot it, or find somebody with a hunting license and shoot it. That's what they recommended to me. I told them I didn't think that was going to work. And then they gave me the name of a biologist in Bakersfield who I called and promptly got a message saying they were on a special assignment and unavailable. I've heard anecdotal stories since of the coyote being on the grounds at Las Flores Elementary School, and several other sightings by people in my neighborhood. And I want to ask the city to reconsider their policy with regard to animal control and dealing with these animals. I do believe they're a threat, and I'd really like to see something happen. If nothing else, please have some kind of protocol where you at least have the numbers of Fish and Game and whoever else we can contact. I spent a morning trying to figure out who to talk to and where to go to talk to somebody. Didn't get any results, but anyway, I think this is a growing concern. I think it's not just in my neighborhood. I've heard of another one hanging out in the Heritage Village area. I've seen them over at Taco Bell sitting in cars begging for food, which is our fault probably for those who feed them. But anyway, understand they're wild animals, but they are impending on the city, inside the city limits, and I do believe they're a health and safety issue, and I'm hoping it doesn't take somebody being bit or otherwise to cause some additional action. Personally, I've had to come out and found our cat on our lawn with not much left of it from a coyote. The only way I could tell it was our cat is the collar was still there. This is a pretty serious problem, and I'm hoping that you all might consider what the city can't do to increase our ability to take care of these things. Thank you.
Thank you. We will see what we can do. I know that there is the issue because of that being a wild animal, and it certainly isn't going to be brought into the shelter with the protected animals. So let's see what options we have. Thank you.
Probably if you'd have shot it, they'd probably arrest you for shooting a gun within the city limits, so you probably not follow that advice.
Next, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Scott Miller. My address is on file from the city of Ridgecrest. I have like 5 different things I'd like to talk about and stay within my time frame. I will do my best to do that. First, I guess this question goes to our city manager that may or may not be able to respond, as city attorney has informed me in the past. Recently, we had a fair at our fairgrounds, and I didn't realize we had 2 other candidates running for our city council. I'm just wondering how, when I called the FPPC about candidates having, or former candidates, or city council people having signs up, at a community event. I was told that landed squarely at the feet of the city. I did email the city with pictures of city council people. I was just curious, is that something that council people are able to do?
I'm not aware of any rule that violates. As far as I recall seeing it, it said the name of the council members. It didn't say vote for, right? But even if it had, it's free speech. I'm not aware of a rule that would have violated.
Okay, so interesting. The other thing, recently, a member of council put out a video, and in my opinion, recklessly accused people that are in support of growth in Ridgecrest of being mafia and a gang member. Mr. Martin? Mr. Martin?
Excuse me, I would remind the speaker, actually all speakers, that the public comment is a time to address the entire council, not to put one person on the spot.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you, but you just said something about free speech, and I'm exercising my free speech. Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Obviously, if you were expecting an answer,
Just
you're
eye
not going to
contact
get it.
is all
So
I'd respond
could you address
I
what
have
you want to say?
2 minutes and 38 seconds that I can stand here and wait for eye contact. Is all I'm asking for. But I understand if he chooses not to. Anyway, I'd like to say to council, I am not part of the mafia. I am not part of a gang. And council saying that people that support growth is repugnant and offensive. There's about 4 other options I'd like to talk about. However, in the interest of time, I will refrain from saying that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I wasn't going to speak tonight, but my name is Mary Ash, and they were talking about coyotes. Well, coyotes have been a long time problem, and I will say something good about the police department. It's been about 15 years ago when I lost my cat to a coyote. I live in town. There's a colony of them up by Gateway School in that area, and the police department came out and took care of my poor kitty who was dead at the mailbox. And then we also had lost a cat to a bobcat on my doorstep. Can't prove it with 100%, but when we took him down to the ER vet in Lancaster, he said that looks like a bobcat attack. So wild animals here are a problem. And when I did try to contact the game warden over the bobcat attack, I finally got a hold of him, and he just didn't really care. He said, can't do much, can't put traps out. So, it is an issue, and I've warned people for many years after that, bring your small animals in the house to keep them safe. So I'd like to make some other comments about the casino, but I think we should let things simmer down. But I will let you know that I fully support it, and in a way I find it ironic that we're celebrating National American Indian Heritage Month, and we have an opportunity as a city, and the council has agreed to this, and I really stand behind it, but we really need to allow Native Americans to be able to have economic development. Not only will it help them, but it will also help our community by bringing in tourism. And that's something we could use because we need to broaden our economic base. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Linda Fuller, Ridgecrest resident. Excuse my arrogance or my mistake. I also wanted to commend you and thank you. I had spoken to the council a few weeks ago regarding the bus for the senior nutrition program to Kern. It happened. They have a bus and it's no charge. So you guys are doing your job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much. Thank you.
Dave Matthews, address is on file. It's been a rough couple of weeks for me. I've had some health issues, but today I'm feeling fairly well enough to get down here. There was a lot of things I wanted to talk about, but I didn't get a chance to list them out, so I'm not going to sit here and try to recall exactly what they were. But I would just like to say, first of all, to the Reverend that came up and gave the invocation, that even though our good Lord reminded us that we should take care of each other, he also somewhere in the Bible said that he had not come to unite. He had come to divide, separate the lambs from the goats. So just think about that a while. The other thing I would like to say is that Mrs. Ash and I usually agree on a lot of things, but on the casino we don't. And the reason what I would like to point out is that supporting American heritage is one thing, gambling is another. And that is the issue with most of the people that I have talked to and myself. So, we're talking about two different things here.
Thank you, sir.
I'll make this quick, and I'm sorry. The crux of the issue is I'm a lifelong Christian. I was baptized at about the age of 10, and I won't tell you how old I am now, but all my life I've lived my life for the Lord. But I also was brought up as a conservative, and as a conservative, I can't see a segment of the community legislating moral values. And if you look around us, we already have bars, we have gambling in grocery stores, gas stations, you name it. Gambling is here, like it or not. And to disallow gambling because you disagree with one little portion of it is just flat out wrong, because we have other people live here. It's just not one minor part of the population, and I don't like public speaking, so I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little rattled. But that's the big crux. I mean, we have a community. It's a legal profession. The state of California has agreed to it. The federal government has agreed to it. That's why the Bureau of Indian Affairs should also agree to it, because the United States has said that gambling is legal. We have it in almost every state of the union and in every community. So to turn away from the casino because it doesn't fit a minority's values is just wrong. So thank you for your time. I hope I made it quick.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mike Neal. First off, I'd like to remind Madam Mayor, you have a policy, council policy. It's on every single agenda. It says plainly each person is limited to one comment.
I realized that. I didn't realize till she started speaking that it was the same person. I have my wrong glasses on.
Ooh.
My apologies.
You better switch out your glasses. Anywho, first, I'd like to address I consider maybe more business-like thing I'd like to talk about, and that is, I guess this has been discussed somewhat in the papers. There was a post on Facebook about the escrow on the land sale on the business park land, and apparently, for some strange reason, the escrow is expired, but the agreement itself, at least in part, is just kind of hanging on. If I bought a house and made an escrow agreement and didn't come up with the money by the end, I wouldn't be buying the house unless I negotiated a new escrow agreement. But it appears that something non-understandable was going on here, and that's not the case. In spite of the fact that the original land sale agreement was dated to end September 28th, but surprisingly it was changed by Mr. Parsons and Mayor Breeden to October 28th, providing an extra month, and now they're just going to let it just hang on. So I hope we're going to see that on the next agenda to get terminated, since the money has not been come up with. On a lighter note, I'd like to say that my good friend Stan Rotora, and I don't see Stan here unless he's somewhere else he's not usually at, won election to the Water District Board, which is going to be a big plus for Ridgecrest. This gentleman has been watching carefully City Council and Water District for many years, and he is exemplary in his attention to detail and his consideration of the citizens' rights and the duties of the public officials to serve them, and he will do that job well. Also, Scott Heyman, soon-to-be new city councilman, and despite all the slandering of him in the past, won by a 30 to 50% margin over the other candidates. Most people would probably see that as a statement of what they think about this casino that's been pushed on us by various council members over the last 2 years. And so I think it's a really good thing, and we have reason to be very thankful for those 2 elections tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment? If you're going to speak, please come up. Thank you.
George Golson, Chairman for the Tembusha Shoshone Tribe. I'm sure everybody's seen me before. But I'm not here to talk about politics, and I'm not here to talk about casino. I see the division, but more than seeing the division, I feel the division. Because I'm not a mean person, and I don't like having to confront some of the things I have to confront. And I know this community is being torn apart, and that was never our intention. You know, we never thought that would go to such an extreme where I'm not hated as a person, I'm hated as a representative for our tribe. And it's difficult. Congratulations to Mr. Heyman. Congratulations to Mike. And congratulations to Peggy. You guys have a tough job. I know. My job is just as tough. So I just want to say thank you for the Reverend. You're going out, and thank you for the patience that some of the city has had for our tribe. And I don't know where this is going to go. I do know we have visions for our future as a tribe. And this is just one component of it. We're not going to starve to death, and we have the ability to do things, but it's still our hope that we would have brought something good to the community. It's still our hope that we would, because I feel a strong connection here with a lot of the friends that I've met, a lot of acquaintances, and I've been treated well by some, been treated poorly by some. Not everybody, and I don't try to generalize everybody in the same category, because that's not fair, because we're all individuals. But I just wanted to say I try very hard not to have hard feelings towards anybody. I'm open to speak to anybody. I've been a tribal leader for 10 years, and being city council is one thing. You go to a place being a Native American, sometimes it's not very pleasant because you're stereotyped, and we are not all the same, just like all the public's not the same. But I just wanted to say, I'm open to talk to anybody. Doesn't have to be about politics, doesn't have to be about anything. Just get to know me as a person before you judge me as a leader. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment?
Hello, my name is Paula Ash. I live in Larkspur Village Apartments in Ridgecrest. You probably know my mother by now. I would like to say, as a member of the generation that came after you guys, and most of you guys, that I would like to see the community grow, because I see a lack of jobs and opportunities for the people of my generation, especially those who grew up here and didn't graduate from college or only made it through high school. And I would like to see the town grow because of that. And I believe that, and I firmly believe that. And I'm probably not going to attend the casino, but I want it there because it'll help support us. And final thought, love the sinner, but not the sin. So that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing no other public comment, we will take time for council announcements. Lindsay?
I'd like to announce that on November 30th at 5:30, we will have the Christmas tree lighting and a movie night to follow. So all are free to join, and it's free for everyone. And also, the trunk or treat was a even bigger success this year than it was last year. So thank you for all who came and passed out candy, and the people who came and brought all their children. So.
Well, Mike? Eddie? I just want to remind you that those of you who are expecting us to meet on Thanksgiving Eve, we probably are not, no, we aren't going to be here. Some of you may be sitting here, but we won't be here. We are scheduling a tentative meeting for the 28th with one item, and if it comes up, we will take care of it for that day. It's an item regarding Downs Boulevard and Down Street. And so we don't know that yet, so we have just tentatively scheduled it at the last meeting. So I just want you to be aware of it so you don't not have Thanksgiving so you can come to City Council. So, okay, that was a joke. Okay. The consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the city staff and will be approved in one motion if no member of the council or the public wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, that item will be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered separately with public comment before action is taken. Do any members of the council wish to have any of these items removed? I'm going to read them. Item number oh, you can read them. Oh, public can't. Listening public. Thank you. Proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency and Financing Authority, Housing Authority, regular meeting dated October 17th. Item number 4, proposed action to approve the Information Technology Manager position, job description, and corresponding resolution. Item number 4, proposed action approving the form and authorization, the execution of a resolution that adopts a debt management policy. Is there anyone who would like to have any of these items pulled on the council? Is there anybody in the public who would like to have any of these items pulled? Okay, then we'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move approval.
Second.
All vote, please. Okay, all items approved. The next item is discussion and other action items. Proposed actions approving the form and authorization of the execution of a certain lease, financing documents in connection with the offering and sale of certificates of participation relating thereto, refinance a portion of the city's unfunded actuarial accrued liability owed to the to the California Public Employees Retirement System. Mr. Strand?
Yes. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, as you recall, we've had 2 previous meetings regarding this topic. One was informational, where the council gave us direction to move forward. The second meeting a couple months ago got council's approval to hire a bond counsel and a municipal advisor and other entities to assist us in developing certain financing agreements to move forward to bond our pension debt. And so tonight, I come back with you tonight seeking your approval to move forward and final authorization to move forward on this. With me tonight, I have Bud Levin from Wolf Hansen. He's going to come up and make the initial presentation. Also, I have bond counsel Brian Quint on the phone. He's here to answer any legal questions regarding this. And we also have Todd Smith from Hilltop Securities here to answer questions if necessary. So, Bud, if you don't mind, come on up and we'll get started.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening again. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. As your city manager.
Can you pull it closer,
Bud,
turn it on?
Bud, before we get started, can we verify that Brian's... Hey, Brian, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, Ron. I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
To reiterate a little bit about what City Manager just articulated, in the August meeting, we've made a presentation on the possibility of refunding the unfunded liabilities with some form of financing, and asked your guidance in moving forward. And after discussion, you decided to have us move forward. We came back in September with a structure that we had put together that indicated there would be significant savings by moving forward with the financing. And at that time, we presented the fact that there were two types of financing vehicles that could be used. One was a validation suit, which would allow you to issue a straight pension obligation bond from the general fund, secured by the general fund. That would take a court process and is almost automatic to be approved, but the negative is that it takes a long time to go through all the various processes. And because of the market being so favorable and with indications that rates might move up here in the near future, the alternative was presented, which is to do a typical type of financing that has been used for almost 50 years in California called a certificate of participation, wherein it's either an installment, a sale and installment sale, or a lease and a leaseback that creates a cash flow as a result of the leaseback that is assigned to a trustee bank. The lease payments are used to pay the debt service on the certificate of participations that are sold to the public or to a private institution, and the proceeds of that sale are then used to pay off the unfunded liabilities. After discussion, it was decided by the council that we should come back with a COP structure with all of the documents for approval. The COP structure offers two advantages. One was the fact that it can be done more quickly, and so therefore better chance to take advantage of the interest rates before they move up significantly. And the other was the fact that because of the structure, it's actually more accepted widespread by the investing public and the institutional investors than a validation suit is. Both work. From our perspective, it makes no difference which form you use. But it was decided to do the COP, and therefore that's what we have put together. I want to point out that it is, as a municipal advisor, I'm regulated by the SEC and by FINRA, the regulatory agency that regulates investment bankers, broker-dealers, and advisors, to be sure that I give you the best possible advice that's best for the city. I have a fiduciary responsibility to do that, and I take that very seriously. So my recommendation on using a COP was because after the discussion, it was decided that was the best policy for the city, and I agree with that. I certainly would be open to having it done on a validation suit if that was the desire for the of the council. What we have today now, what has occurred since the September meeting, is that we've been working diligently on putting together the structure. Bond Counsel has put together the documents. Hilltop Securities has put together an excellent presentation to the rating agency, which we had today. We had a presentation by phone with the city manager and finance director, Hilltop Securities and me on the call. We were very well received by S&P. They liked the structure. They like the city, and we're very, very hopeful that we're going to get an investment grade rating that will allow us to take advantage of bond insurance and a surety bond that overall will give us the best result. One other factor that is important to discuss tonight or to point out to you tonight is that with the passage of time, since September to now, the bond rates have gone up. And I have a slide that will show that in the PowerPoint. And as a result of the rates going up, now when we do our analysis, which we did tonight, with a comparison of the analysis that we did in September, the results are not quite as good. They are good. They produce very good savings, but not as good as we would have had available in September. That's why we think it's important to have the approval for the documents tonight so that we can have Hilltop, once the rating comes out, which would be next week, to get active in the marketing so we can capture the rates before they go up too much higher. The net result, to cut to the chase, is that when the presentation was made in September, our total earnings estimate for the life of the financing was around $7 million. Today, it would be somewhere around $6 million. So we have lost between $800,000 and $1 million in the savings, but we still have very, very strong savings. And we believe that if we can move forward within the next 30 days to get this to market, particularly with the election out of the way, market reacted very reasonably to the results of the election. Bond rates kind of stayed. They went up a little bit. They went down early, came back up, and about ended where they were pre-election. So with that in mind, we think that there will be some volatility, but overall they should be available, the rates, and I'll let Todd address that because he's closer to the day-to-day market than I am. And I rely on him for those inputs, that the results will be quite satisfactory. I think maybe if you'd like, I could go through a couple of slides that are different from the September, so you can see the comparisons, and then we can discuss the actual agreements that are going to be used. So, Todd, if you turn to slide 9, if you would. Yeah, you're going backwards, but that's fine. That's fine.
Here, hold on here.
There you go. Took me a while to get used to that, too.
Yeah.
Well, still wants to go to the end, but that's okay. Just back up then. Are these slides numbered differently than my PowerPoint, maybe? So, okay, let's go back one slide. That's fine. I can adapt to that.
You want to go back to where
Back one. Now go forward one.
Yeah, they were renumbered because they were put in the full packet.
Yeah. I tell you, easiest thing, go back to the start. Then. There, stop there. So this is old. This hasn't changed. The next slide is, so you go by the next slide. Okay, and the next one. Okay, keep going. Oh, you know what? You're going the wrong way. So go. There we go. There you go. Okay, stop there. Okay. Next slide. Current, the 28 amortization. Okay. Okay. Now, next slide is the first slide I want to talk about. All right. This was the structure of the sources and uses of the bonds, the COP that was being proposed based on our September numbers. And if you notice, it was basically a bond issue of $19,280,000. The cost of issuance, which are the daily, the delivery date expenses of $468,000, and total uses of $19,280,000. You can see under the project fund deposits that it would pay off the CalPERS unfunded at $18,810,000. Next slide.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So Because you were just talking about the rating
Yes.
potentially, I was curious, these estimates for the insurance and the surety bonds and things, how much would those go down if our rating goes up?
That's a good question. Basically, it's a more significant question than you think. If we didn't get a very good rating, the bond insurance would not even be available. The bond insurers only want to insure investment grade. If we get an A-, they would quote it with one price. We're using A- numbers when we have this estimate. If it comes in A+ or AA, then the cost would go down because there's less of a risk for the insurance company.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
So we're on October 20.
Okay, now here is the same sources and uses based on the rates as of late last week. And as you can see, the couple of differences. Number one, the size of the issue is a little bit different at $19,330,000. The biggest difference is now that we have gotten closer to the time, we've refined the cost of issuance. And if you'll notice, the cost of issuance went from the first number under delivery date expenses, $200,000 to $243,500. Part of that was because we found out from the rating agency that we need to have title insurance on this. That was not a cost that we had factored in, and a couple of the other costs ended up being slightly higher than we had estimated. So these are pretty solid costs now that should not vary between now and a final number once we go to sale. Now go to the next slide.
These are the cost of insurance detail.
Yeah, now this is a slide that we didn't show last time because remember I explained that a lot of these costs were very preliminary and that once we had them identified and nailed down, we would come back with a slide that would show the cost of issuance. This is the same number that you just saw on the previous page. But we separated out the insurance because of the fact that we may or may not have insurance, but we're assuming we will. So as you can see, we have an underwriter a discount of $130,000. The rest of the cost of issuance equals that $246 that was on the previous page, and then the insurance expenses of $142. So total cost of issuance of all the costs involved in bringing this to market would be $516,000. That includes the $142,000 for insurance that will get us better rates. If they don't get us better rates, if the insurance cost is too high, we will eliminate that when we get ready to sell the bonds.
I'd like to ask a question, if I may.
Sure.
Someone asked me today if I could explain to them what the insurance covered.
Sure, absolutely.
And I could not.
Yeah, okay.
So
no
can
problem.
you do that for me, please?
Absolutely. What bond insurance is, an insurance company will take on the responsibility for making sure that the projected payments are made. So if the debt service payments call for a $300,000 or $1.5 million payment in 2019, and for some reason the city falls short and is not able to make that $1.5 million payment, the insurance steps up and makes that payment.
What happens at that point in time? If we are not able to make that payment, what would constitute not being, clearly not having the money, but that is the
there would
only
be a
thing?
negotiation, and now you'd be responsible for making the next payment. That would be done. Insurance would be responsible for making all of those payments. They, of course, would sit down with the city and try to work out whatever arrangements could be worked out. They would take a look at the surety bond, which we'll get to in a second, which also helps insure it, and they would seek to reach a settlement with you so that they would be made whole on some basis. But the insurance is there as an added factor for the investing public. Usually insurers will not insure unless they're awfully sure that you're going to be able to make those payments. And the fact that that's another endorsement of the city. They also rely on the rating agency who has done their analysis. But in the bottom line, they will back up the payment responsibility of the city, and if they have to make those payments, they will seek restitution from the city on some basis.
And so this is very similar to like a PMI on a house.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
Absolutely. And the surety bond is really one of the main reasons we like to have insurance whenever possible. Because you notice that surety bond at $40,000. That's a one-time fee that is paid out of the proceeds. What that provides is a debt service reserve fund that otherwise would be required to be funded with cash. And typically, the debt service reserve fund is equal to 1 year's maximum debt service. So I believe in our projections here, it's around $1.5 million. So if you didn't have a surety bond, you would have to add $1.5 million to the size of the bond issue and be paying the 4% or 4.5% on $1.5 million over the life of the bond for 28 years, as opposed to a one-time fee of $40,000. Insurance companies came to the I have a lot of people in a lot of cities that ask, well, why in the world would they do that? Well, the reason they would do that is once they issue the insurance, they're on the hook for making the payment. The fact that you may have $1.5 million that's going to cover one payment doesn't do much for them. So they finally figured out that maybe it's smarter to replace that $1.5 million with their own second policy and make a fee on that. And so that's basically where surety bonds became popular. And it's very positive for the issuers because, again, you're saving an awful lot of interest payments that would be made over the life of an issue, and you're able to issue a lower par amount of bonds.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, next slide. Would be the new bonds debt service. Okay, so here's what we're looking at right now for the bonds being priced at the rates that are available today, and you can see that the rate goes to a 4.72. Now, if you go back one slide. This is what the presentation we made back in September, and if you notice the rates are at 4.42. So basically the interest rate has gone up by around 30 basis points on average. 30 basis points creates around $800,000 difference in savings. And you can see if you go to now if we go forward 2 slides.
To the savings?
Yes. And there's the savings page from the September debt service run at the 7063. You can see the yearly savings in the 320, 340 level. One more slide, and you can see the comparison to where we are as of October 26th, the end of last week. We were at almost 6.3. We're still in the 300,000 level in those early and middle years, but it's a little lower 300,000 level. I think we can skip. You can do the next 2. If you go 3 more, one more than that. Okay. Here we see, to show you, these are actual figures from the bond market. The one on the left is what we call the 10-year government note. You hear that talked about all the time. If you follow CNBC, they're always talking about the 10-year did this, the 10-year did that. So the 10-year, if you look Monday, September 3rd, which is the day before we put together our numbers for the September presentation, the 10-year was at 2.86. You can see where it was Monday, November 5th. This week, 3.20. So you can see that has moved 34 basis points. And if you look on the right, and by the way, you can see the chart. So the chart shows you the trend. And you can see, even though it's gone up and it's gone down, the overall trend is to go up. It's going to take a while for it to go to where it's going to level off, and that we may be close to that now, and hopefully we are. You can see the 30-year, which is also the 10-year is used for the pricing part of the COPs that go for the first 10, 15 years. The bonds that the COPs that go from 16 through the next 18 years or so would be priced off the 30-year. And you can see the 30-year was at a 302 and on September 3rd, and now it's at a 344. Actually, today it was at a 341.
343 it closed.
343 close. Okay, great. So it was down 1 basis point.
Yeah.
So anyway, that gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. We're doing the best we can. You know, when we did the successor agency, we went through the same thing and ultimately got a very good result when we finally priced. We're hopeful of the same thing now. But again, we can't fight the market if the market is what it is at the time we price. Our best job is to try to figure out when to actually pull the trigger on the financing itself and price. That's everything about the numbers, and now maybe we could talk, and Brian Quint is on the line to answer any questions about this. It's a very straightforward structure. By the way, I want to go to one more chart before we do that. If you'll move it forward to the last page, the appendix. One more. Mm-hmm. There. I had put this together in the September proposal. I wanted to remind everyone. These are a group of COPs that we picked because we thought they were relevant for you to look at. There's over 200 COPs that we said at that point issued or were proposed. Pretty much all of those have been issued now. So there's around 200 COPs that were issued between January 2017 and now. And here's a typical list of sample cities that have issued COPs. Same type of structure that we're talking about here. Either a lease or a leaseback of essential property or an installment sale. And then all assigned to the trustee. So you see that the City of Costa Mesa, City of Los Angeles, City of Anaheim did $45 million. Pismo Beach did a small issue. City of Upland did $132 million COP. Kern High School District did $105,000. County of San Francisco, $100 million. $105 million, $132 million. City of Santa Monica, $68 million. Bellflower did $10 million. Castaic Lake Water Agency did $50 million, and so forth. I can provide another 100 of those if you would like to see those at any time. So let's talk about the structure. The structure would be to do a site lease. That's one of the documents that you're being asked to approve. The site lease would lease the City Hall and Community Center to the Public Property Finance Corporation of California. I want to remind the council that in 2005, you did a COP that operated for 13 years with absolutely no problems. It was paid off when we did the successor agency refunding in 2018. It was the identical structure with one exception. You had a city participating entity that was used as the counterparty for that particular transaction. Because the RDA was part of that Joint Powers Authority that was used, and RDAs no longer exist, and successor agencies cannot be used for this, we have to use a different entity. Because everybody in the state, all cities in the state, have had that same issue that they have to deal with. Several companies have been created that serve simply for that function. They act as the counterparty for the COP lease structure. Once it's assigned to the trustee, their involvement ends. They don't manage the property. They don't keep track of what's happening with the property. It's all in the hands of the trustee. The payments are made by the city under a lease agreement where that entity leases the facility back to the city. And the city makes those payments. All of that is assigned to the trustee. The payments are made to the trustee. Trustee makes the COP payments. And then either through a refunding, the certificates are paid off like we did in the 05, or it goes through full maturity. And at the end, the obligation is completed and the lease goes away. There's a certificate purchase agreement, which is in effect like the bond purchase agreement that was used when we did the successor agency bonds. This is simply a contract between the city and Hilltop Securities for the purchase of the bonds. And that will be signed after the bonds are sold. And I'll get into the schedule in just a minute. The last document, which is an extremely important document that you're asked to approve, and you have a copy of it, and it's a very thick document. It's not quite complete because there's still additional information that's going to be provided, but it's called the Preliminary Official Statement. That's the statement that Hilltop Securities will use to sell the securities, to sell the COPs. Every potential buyer, whether it's an institutional buyer or an individual buyer, will be given a copy of this official statement, which describes the city, describes the transaction, gives all the financials of the city and all the details about the insurance and everything it has to do with the issuance and the payment of these certificates. And that's a document that once approved today will be finalized and then used and sent to all the available investors to take a look at and leading up to the sale date. So I think that's about everything that I have to talk about today. We hope that you decide to move ahead. We've relied on the fact that you anticipated doing all this, so we've done a lot of work, and S&P has done a lot of work. Hilltop and the Bond Council have also, and we're ready to go ahead and try to lock in the best rates that we can so you can have the maximum result.
Given looking into your crystal ball, what do you think the rates are going to go? Because you said up.
Yes.
And we've seen it go up significantly.
Well, exactly. Well, you know what? We've been talking about that for quite a while, and my opinion is that we're still going to be in what we traditionally call a low-rate environment, because rates can really go up where you can't even talk about doing a refunding. It would make absolutely no sense. We're far, far from that.
That's what I want to ask.
Yes,
how far are we away from
that? Well,
I
do think that we will have reasonable rates in which to operate between now, certainly the end of the year, and on into the first quarter of next year. I think once we get beyond that, we may be seeing the Fed being a little more anxious about inflation and raising the short-term rates. We could see the market being worried about that, and rates could go up even more than they are right now. I do think that we're operating within the environment that if we can move forward over the next 30 to 60 days to get this, preferably more like the 30 days, and I'd like to hear what Todd has to say, I think that our savings will be well in the between the 5 and the 7 million range. I know that's a wide range, but that still creates tremendous savings. If we had come in here initially and said that you're looking at a $5 million savings, you would have been very excited. However, we did it what the market was showing at that particular time, and so. But I think we will be okay on this, and that the rates will not go up to where they would be so significant that you wouldn't want to do the issue.
I've got a question.
Sure.
It says that the rate is approximately 4.8%, but then a couple paragraphs down it says true interest cost not to exceed 6%. What is the 6%?
Well, no, that's a good question, by the way. That's a level that we always choose. It's a not to exceed level. So when we come to most city councils, you're going to want to know, wait a minute, is there a level at which you would not go ahead with this without coming back to us? And so we come up with a level that would still produce very good savings, but we wouldn't have to come back. If this it goes from 480 to 520, we're not going to come back to you and get a reapproval for 520. Why? Because we'll lose the 520 bid. By the time we do the week notice, we come back and make the presentation. You say, yeah. Then we go back to the market. Market says, no, it's 540. And you could chase the market, and I've seen that happen, all the way up. So we come up with, in combination with Bond Council and Hilltop, we come up with a level of a not to exceed.
Okay, so at 4.8%, we're going to save approximately $6.3 million.
Right.
So at 6%, what are we going to save?
Well, if your long rates went to 6%, you'd probably be in the $3 to $4 million range.
Okay.
By the way, we have no anticipation that it's going to go to 6. That's
a pretty high.
Yeah, if we go to 6, there's going to. I mean, it would take a earth-shaking event for it to go. Can it go to where this 480 would look like 520 or 530? Yes, and that would take a while to get there. So we were at 460, I think, when we were here before in the September, and now we're at 480. So it's moved 20 basis points in 2 months. We want to move it. We want to be done with this within 30 days, so we won't have that. I'm pretty confident that we would not have much of a movement from this point on.
But if we do this, technically, this building becomes collateral.
Well, it's collateral in this way, and that's why we have bond counsel here. There's no deed of trust. It cannot be foreclosed on. It's not like a typical. It is a leaseback where the lease payments are being utilized as a financing facility to allow you to issue these without having to do a full-blown election that would almost take too long to come back and do anything reasonable. But the property cannot be foreclosed on.
Okay. Can it be restrictions put on it that we have to do painting every so many years or anything like that?
I'll let Brian. Are you here?
I'm here, and I'm sorry I didn't hear the question.
Sure. The question is, they understand that it cannot be foreclosed on. The question is, can there be restrictions put on them that the painting periodically, all of those kind of things that you would typically see in a lease?
No, thank you. The answer is this is what we call a net lease. And the city will continue to operate the City Hall building as it always did. It would have its obligations to insure it as it always does. And it would not have any other limitations or placed on it as far as the operation of the building.
In effect, that the lessor, this public finance corporation, literally disappears. They don't disappear being in existence. They just go away. They did their function. You can see that if you looked at the cost of issuance, what they're getting paid, totally all in for providing the service, $3,000. This is what they do for every city that they do this for. That's because they have a one-time event where they sign the documents.
For the financing.
Go ahead, Brian.
I'm sorry. They act purely as a conduit to let us do the transaction. In fact, all of their obligations are transferred to the trustee bank at closing, and effectively they're out of the deal on day one.
Yes. He said that better than I did. So.
Other questions or comments from council? I had one more. When you referred to an early payoff,
yes.
What is the hit for paying off early?
Okay, good. That's good. That's part of every deal, by the way, as I mentioned, I think, in the last time. And that's something that will be negotiated by Hilltop or decided by Hilltop based on the market conditions. Now, are we still basically 10-year no-call, par call at that point?
Yeah, the standard, what we call the optional redemption provisions or optional call provisions,
which is your option.
The ability for the city to call in the debt or refinance the debt or restructure whatever it might be. Traditionally are 10 years at par, but I think that in this market we've been successful in getting away without paying any interest rate penalty to get a shorter call that we can push it to 8 years.
Wow, that would be terrific.
How do they do that? Where do they make them? I mean, clearly they're making money, but that is the whole point of they want to charge you interest over the long term.
Right.
Why would they not penalize us for going early?
I could think of one. If rates had gone way up, they could reinvest their money at a higher rate.
Right, but the real answer to your question is that they don't really have a choice. We will set, based on what Todd thinks the market will bear, let's say it's an 8-year par call. The investor can either buy the COP or not. If he buys it, he knows going in that the rate he's going to be paying, that he's going to be receiving, is certainly safe for 8 years. And then there's a possibility that he could have the COPs paid off. But So it's what we can get away with, basically.
Right.
Okay. Any other council questions or comments? Public? Questions or comments?
Ridgecrest. I talked to the mayor about this maybe 2 months ago. But basically, through city fiscal mismanagement, we've incurred $10 million of unfunded pension liability. Is that correct? Correct?
What was it? I couldn't understand.
It's actually 18 million.
Yeah, 18 is what we have.
It's 18 million.
Yeah, 18 million. So we think it's wise as a city to finance it over the next 28 years. Is that correct? Is that what we're talking about doing?
You want me to answer that
Go
question?
ahead, please.
Yes, because you're already financing at 18 years. You're already paying a 28-year schedule to CalPERS. That 18 million is being paid off to CalPERS on a yearly basis at 7.25% interest, dropping down in 3 years to 7%. We propose that we're going to lower that rate to somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.5% to 4.5%, thus saving the city over, right now, we're estimating roughly $6 million. If they don't do the deal, stay without doing it, they're going to pay what they're paying. If they do the COP, they're going to save $6 million.
But what is the city doing to structure to avoid this again? We do this here where we incur this debt, and then we refinance it. We kick the can down the road a bunch of more years, and I don't see any fiscal responsibility within the city, which I talked to the mayor. Can I finish?
Sure.
What I talked to the mayor about is if they're going to do this, they need to have fiscal, from the city perspective, not on you guys, you're the bondholder to understand that, but they have to put something, because right now, if they kick this on, they're still not fully funding the pension starting next year. Is that correct?
That's incorrect.
Oh, okay. The mayor gave me a different comment within 2 months of that.
Well, the PERS has a discount rate, and currently it's 7.25%. This last year, they experienced a profit of about 8.3%. So there was actually a positive thing to our debt. In other words, we actually didn't incur more debt. We actually were able to pay some debt off because they actually experienced a higher interest on their investments than they'd anticipated. So anytime anything goes below 7.25%, their discount rate, we assume that loss as a city as well as everybody else that's involved in PERS. Our plan is it to rebond or bond this debt at a lower interest rate. Now, starting next year, the state's going to have a separate amortization chart that's going to go for 20 years. It's going to be UAL number 2. If we pay off this one, then the next one, if depending upon how the market goes, we could start incurring more debt based upon their losses or gains on the market. Now, we do have a strategy that we want to employ where we can take out a 115, where we can then put some money aside, preferably from this first year or second year, to address any sort of losses in the future, so we don't have this large debt that starts building up.
Yeah, but why haven't we managed this over the years? Here's the city council. This is the entity that has got us in this debt.
No, we're subject to CalPERS.
Yeah, we're subject to CalPERS.
They tell us how much we owe each year, and then if they don't meet their investment goals, then it falls back on us.
Yes, but if we paid that annually, we would not have $10 million. If we owed $1 million in 1997, we paid $1 million in 1997, we wouldn't be flush? Is there no cities that are flush with their CalPERS in the state of California?
Well, he sees a lot of them. Very few. Most cities, this is a statewide problem. Most cities have unfunded liabilities. I'm dealing with 3 cities right now, not much bigger than Ridgecrest, that have unfunded liabilities of $80 to $100 million. And there's nothing we can really do to help them because they're not making their payments. They couldn't afford to make the payments on a COP or on a validation suit direct obligation. So what Ridgecrest, I think what you're thinking about doing, and that's been under discussion, is to take some of the savings that would be generated, the $300,000 a year, and put part of that aside in some type of reserve. There's a type of reserve that the city manager referred to called a 115 trust. Once you put the money in, it can't come out other than to pay unfunded liabilities, and let that be invested and grow so that if there are future unfunded liabilities, that's a source for reducing that or paying that.
Yeah, I understand the
them.
bond issue. I'm just trying to get back to the council itself.
Sure.
Knowing the circumstances we're in now, what legislation or act is the city doing to try to prevent us from incurring more debt? I got to go. I guess I'm done. But that would be my
That's
question.
okay. We're answering your question, so we want to answer it. One of the things we're doing is dealing with it now. We are not going to prevent more debt ever. What we're going to do, though, is have that money aside that we can go ahead and pay those when that happens. When you and I were talking different scenarios, there was probably half a dozen options we talked about, and all of them were possibilities. Now we have more real information about what we can do, Chuck. And if I'm saying any of this incorrectly, please correct me. Because in the long run, if we don't do it in a few years, we're going to have to come up with a lot more money than we have now.
Yeah, I understand. I think with what you're doing, I understand what you're doing now. But then I'm saying, where are you going ahead to put something? Okay, you're talking $300,000. Me and you talked about $300,000 on $10 million. It doesn't seem like a reasonable set aside for an impound account on $10 million would be $300,000.
However, you're talking 1 year. I'm talking 28 years of 300. Well, let's say 10 to 15 years at 300,000 invested every year. What do you have at the end of 10 or 15 years? You have $5, $6, $7 million that could help you pay off any new unfunded. Your old unfunded is now zero.
Yeah,
pay that off.
Yeah.
Now you have a new unfunded that is developed, and you've got $7 million to pay that after 10 or 12 or 15.
I definitely understand to go from 7.5% down to 4.5% or something. But
Yes.
it seems like the fact that we discussed that we got into a situation where you have debt that you're not paying, and then you're maybe not being fiscally responsible. You could be tighten your belts as a city and not have this happen in the future. That's my point.
But you never know whether it's going to happen, because CalPERS can say, we can do the 7.25, and you have no option. You pay the 7.25.
I know from my corporate world, when I used to run my corporate books, we had to be 85% full funded every year, or we took the money out of profit and paid for it. So I don't know how the cities work, but a corporation, if you're a corporation, you have to be funded. Well, that's what I'm saying. But if you're a corporation, you have to fund your pension plans. You just can't kick it down the road 28 years.
To put this, I don't know if you understand how these unfunded liabilities are created. We did that in the earlier presentations. CalPERS sets a rate that they feel has to be earned on the pool of money that City of Ridgecrest has paid in for their retirement. They've determined that rate is 7.25%. If they don't earn 7.25% and they earn 6%, that shortfall becomes your unfunded liability at the
Totally
city.
understand finance.
So the city has no responsibility for that. They paid the money to CalPERS. CalPERS did not produce the result, and now the city has to pay again that shortfall. And if they're paying it off over a period of time,
they're paying interest on top of that.
Additional interest.
Yes,
on
yeah,
top
that's the
of
point.
that.
Well, you know
You've
what
got it
CalPERS
right.
is like in the state of California.
Exactly.
Aren't they $1 trillion underfunded? Isn't there $1 trillion underfunded CalPERS?
That's a big number.
Yeah, you know that number better than I do.
Big number? Yeah,
it's
there's $1 trillion out there unfunded. And for some reason, we don't think, I'm going to stop.
Mr. Rowland,
past my 5 minutes, but
this thing
thank
came
you.
about to the
Good
city about
comments.
3 years ago.
Thank you.
The UAL came to the unfunded actual liability was brought to the city 3 years ago with a 30-year amortization chart that we have to start paying. We made our first payment 3 years ago. We're now up to $1.5 million for this year. If we do nothing by 2023, we have to find another $400,000 in our budget to cover that payment. And the reason why we're doing this today is trying to be fiscally responsible to try and save that money. If we don't have to pay it, we shouldn't have to pay it. So if we do nothing, we're going to be paying a lot more. We're going to have to be cutting somewhere or raising taxes to pay it.
Next, please.
Yes, Mike Neal. So for the slightly uneducated, the lease back, I looked through the document as much as I could, lots of pages on there previously, but most of the definitive sections defining numbers are blank, or the lease, and the first lease from the city to the corporation, and the next lease back to the city. Are those going to be for the same amounts? Or is
Well,
this
yeah,
where the
that-
money's
that's-
coming
no,
from?
No, that's a fair question. The number. Oh, I'm sorry. The numbers are not there because the bonds haven't been sold yet. Once the bonds are sold, the final documents are prepared, and then we know the actual numbers. The first lease amount that's blank is the total purchase price. That's the total amount of the proceeds of the transaction. That's what's going to pay off the funded liability.
Oh, okay.
The second lease, which is the payoff of that set amount over 28 years, is the yearly or semi-annual payments that are going to be made back to the lessor, which is assigned to the trustee to make the payment on the certificates of participation. So that's going to pay off the loan that was made by the public to provide the money to pay the CalPERS unfunded liability. And those numbers are filled in after the bonds are sold.
Okay, so the council will make the final approval at that point?
No, what they're approving today is these documents. They're giving a group of the representatives here to sign the final documents, and we're approving. That's why the discussion of the not to exceed 6%. There are certain limitations that are provided in the resolution beyond which the certificates cannot be sold. So there's a protection on that. There's always, if the deal is done, there's going to be significant savings. Is it going to be $6 million? We wish we could commit to that today, but we can't. But it's going to be significant, or the deal will not go forward at this time.
Okay, understood. The point of saving the money, I believe in past discussions of Finance Committee, there were statements made about, CalPERS, we got a bunch of money we had to pay to CalPERS. In this particular case, obviously we're still paying some, but we're paying less, on the average of $270,000 per year, less if you look at all the numbers averaged over all the 28 years. So this is actually making us some money, as opposed to that CalPERS being put forth as an increasing expense. So just in the overall, to the council, in your understanding in future years, what we've been told by city staff is now at this point, this is going to be more money in the city's coffers, if you will, along with the projected sales tax increase by city finance. So those two together is like almost $750,000 more per year that you're going to be able to have. So when you start talking about doing things like this proposed tax assessment, so forth and so on, you need to consider that we probably don't need that. We've got the money out of these two sources just right here.
That's for council.
Okay, next, please.
Just to clarify, the only year we're probably going to have a real salary savings will be the first year, and maybe a little bit in the second year. But the theory, with third year and beyond, is where we don't have to go into budget to find money to make the payments. So that I want to make that understood, that we're not seeing a $6 million windfall. We're just not having to pay that additional money out of our budget.
Sir?
Dave, excuse me. Dave Matthews, address is on file. I have two things. On the leaseback arrangement, I understood you to say that the city would then have a lease payment to that entity. Is that right?
Yes, that the lease to the entity that originally leased it from the city leases it back to the city. It's all assigned to a trustee, U.S. Bank, that all the payments, they would have full control of the payments, the lease payments that are being made by the city under that agreement. The lease payments would be used to pay the debt service on the certificates of participation, just like paying the debt service on a bond or paying the mortgage payment on a house, until the investor is paid off. And then the transaction is complete and the city, the lease goes away.
Well, I think my deep down question is, and maybe you just answered it, but I didn't quite follow. Where does the money for that payment come from?
It comes from the city, who instead of paying CalPERS $1.5 million, for example, on a given year, would pay under the lease $1.2 million, thus saving $300,000. It's the same payment that they've been paying to CalPERS, only instead of paying to CalPERS, because CalPERS has been completely paid off on the amount that was owed, they now pay under the lease agreement to the trustee, who then pays the investor who has loaned the money to the city.
I guess I get it now. Anyway, the other thing is, you told an earlier gentleman here, that the first gentleman, that future unfunded liabilities would come out of the savings, whatever that was, I forget.
What I said is, if there are future unfunded liabilities, one of the options that the city will have is to take some of the savings, that $300,000 I just used as an example, some of that to be set aside in a reserve and invested, and then as future unfunded liabilities come up, the city would have a source of payment generated from good financial management in refinancing the CalPERS obligation. They would have that money available to pay future unfunded liabilities.
I understand now, but is the city going to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have any choice.
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
No, you do have a choice, but yeah, good management.
But as far as that,
yes, good financial management would dictate.
Short of
that you would
spending
use
it all
some of
because
it. Yes.
we want to go blow it on something.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend
Yeah.
that. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, is there any other public comment?
Just for the public's benefit, I realize this is like buying a house and all the hands come out and you pay a bunch of fees. Just so the public knows, obviously you're not doing this just out of the goodness of your heart. You're going to get some. Could we go back to the list of fees or whatever, and so we know what we're paying your company for this service?
Sure. Bond counsel gets $75,000. There's a disclosure counsel, which is the same attorney that does the work for the bond counsel. Does all of the documents that you've seen. Oh, I'm sorry. The bond counsel does all of the bond documents and gives his legal opinion on that the bonds have been issued legally. He has a liability on the basis that if something goes wrong and it's because it wasn't structured properly, he will be have some responsibility. A disclosure counsel make sure that the preliminary official statement, and that's a protection for the city, has been prepared properly, that all disclosures about the city are included in the preliminary official statement, so any investor that is buying has full access to all of the information. We are the municipal advisor. Our fee is $80,000. We've been working on this for almost a full year. We worked on your successor agency. I think our fee at that point was $75,000, and we produced $6 or $7 or $8 million in savings. We're anticipating doing the same thing here. Again, all of these first three fees, and I think all of the fees basically, are what we call success-based. We can do all of this work, and if it doesn't work out, the market changes on us. For example, city still wants to go ahead with it, but we have to come back and say, look, the savings were only $1 million. We honestly feel that is not worth your issuing now. Let's wait and see if the market changes. You got a long period of time. We'll come back at the more appropriate time. But we don't get paid a penny for our work unless the city realizes the benefit. Likewise, bond counsel and disclosure counsel. Underwriter is Hilltop. They get $130,000, actually a very low fee for a $19 million deal. You can explain what your liability and responsibility is.
So as the underwriter, act as the initial purchaser of these bonds that are going to be resold to the public. We have a 60-man institutional sales force and a 110-man retail sales force that all work on commission. The commissions that they earn from selling these bonds are contained in our underwriting discount. So the majority of the fees of that $130,000 are basically getting paid to salesmen to pick up the phone and call institutional accounts, funds, retail investors, and so forth to sell the bonds at the lowest rates possible. On the day that we priced, on the day prior to us going out and selling the bonds, and I think it's important to note this because there's been some questions along this line, we're going to provide to the city, we'll have a conference call with the city, and we're going to provide to them a list of comparable certificate of participation transactions, the associated interest rates, and pertinent data related to those transactions. We're going to be able to compare those deals to the transaction that we're putting forth into the marketplace, and with the whole purpose of showing and demonstrating to the city that as our role as an underwriter, our job is to go out and sell the bonds, purchase the bonds from you and sell them to the public, but sell them at the best and lowest rates available.
And my job will be to review those comparisons and review the proposal that Hilltop is making and make sure that the city is getting the best price available in the marketplace to ensure that we're getting the best savings that are possible.
Right. So there's that process clearly that takes place on the day prior to us actually going out and soliciting orders from the buy side. On the day of pricing, we will go out and sell the bonds and run an order period where people our sales guys will call the accounts, and the accounts will say we'll take $5 million, $2 million, whatever the number is, of these various maturities. We will then reconvene on a call after the order period is completed with the city and with the municipal advisor, with Bud, and we will go through the results of the sale. If the city is unhappy with the sale, they can say we don't want it.
Yep. Yeah, that's something to keep in mind, that there is the added factor that if my advice to you is, I don't think this is a fair price, I don't think this is the right time to sell, you don't have to sign the bond purchase agreement or the certificate purchase agreement, and then the deal doesn't go forward. You can come back and do it at a later time or whatever. To answer your question, that $130,000 then is compensating Hilltop for the work of going out and getting the bonds sold at the best possible rate, and in many cases for actually picking up unsold bonds as part of the commitment. So let's say, for example, they sell $13 million, but there's $6 million unsold. Hilltop will take that into inventory at their risk. So there's a risk premium in the fee. That I can tell you, when I first broke into the business, or after the first 10 years being in the business, the type of fee that an underwriter would get was anywhere from 2 to 3% of the face amount. So you'd be talking about close to $600,000. Today, because of the competitive world we're in, that fee is now dropped below 1%. So,
Times have changed.
I guess that fosters another question. Just
right, and then curiosity. Again, the corporation is the counterparty of.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, and I'll ask the question.
Yeah, the counterparty of the lease. Again, they're getting $3,500 for the one-time event. S&P rating. We have it on there at $25,000. With our call today, I think we got a quote from them around $22,000. So that's going to be a little bit less, but that's what they get paid for doing their analysis and putting the rating on the bonds, which is what gets us and Hilltop the appropriate interest rate when they're selling the certificates. Title insurance is to make sure that there are no other liens on the Civic Center. By the way, in doing the title search, we realized that when the 2005 certificates were paid off, that lien still was on there. So as a result, that got removed, and that was terminated. And then we have a miscellaneous number just in case there's something that we don't see that is needed to be provided in the sale, and so the city doesn't have to go out of pocket.
Okay.
And that's
All
our
right.
list.
And as to the bonds themselves, are these some kind of tax-free municipal type bonds, or what kind of bonds are those?
Normally, an issue by a city would be tax-free. This is one of the bonds that is taxable because it's a state obligation. It goes to providing money onto individuals when they retire. It does not meet the standard of the requirements for issuing a tax-exempt bond. So this is a municipal bond, but it's a taxable.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much. That was very helpful. I hope the council finds that helpful.
Absolutely.
Any other public comment? Any other council comment? Motion. Is there a motion to approve?
The whole thing, or just need to make a motion?
Also move.
I'm looking for it. Oh, there's not a, I was looking for it earlier.
Proposed action to approve the, is that what you were going to read that?
You're going to approve item 6, right? You made
Yes.
a motion to approve item 6.
Yes.
I will second it.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much. I
Thank
might
you
add
all.
that a 6-0, that a 5-0 vote is always very, very positive for the marketing of the bonds. It shows that everybody on the city council was behind the.
So you'll save
issue.
us another $1 million?
It could. That's good. I'll keep that in mind.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank your wife for coming up and joining us again. Thank
Absolutely,
you.
our pleasure.
Okay, we are on item number 7 then. Proposed action to approve a resolution to approve the professional services agreement with the firm Wildan Engineering in the amount of $74,780 to provide traffic engineering services for the systemic safety analysis report project, highway safety improvement program project, and to authorize the city manager Ron Strand to sign the agreement. There you are, sir.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, City Council, this is a real short and sweet item here before you tonight. We have a systematic safety analysis report project before you tonight, and that is a state grant project. And what it's tailored for, what it's suited for, is determining future highway safety improvement projects. What we're asking Wildan to do here is to go out and do traffic analysis for us, doing speed surveys, doing volume surveys of our streets, looking at our intersections, looking at crash data, also looking at pedestrian safety issues within our community. And so what they will be preparing for us is a systemic safety analysis for our entire city that we can base our future highway safety improvement applications for future grant funding. Now, this is a real opportunity for us as well, in that we are required to have speed surveys regularly within the city, and we are at a time which we're approaching the expiration of our last speed survey, and that is one of the key components of this particular traffic services that's going to be provided. The police department is in need of this, and this is one of the components. So we're very fortunate to have this grant funding to allow us to complete that for our police department. Another thing is volume studies. Updating, I think the last volume study we had was in 2006. So they're also going to be performing volume counts on all of our major arterials within our city. So with that, Honorable Mayor, I'm asking that the City Council, that you approve the agreement with Wildan in the amount of $74,780 for the traffic engineering services. I'm also asking that you authorize the Finance Director to amend the budget to reflect the city matching funds from Measure V in the amount of $7,500. And that, by the way, makes up our matching, what we're required to produce for matching funds for this particular grant. And then I'm also asking that the City Council authorize the city manager to execute the professional services agreement. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
I had one. I would like to know why we selected using Measure V funds for our matching portion.
Measure V can be utilized for anything relative to our streets, and so we felt that would be the fund amount that we could draw from comfortably to meet our match, rather than ask the council for anything from the general fund. We felt that Measure V might be that funding source that all related to streets and safety that would be appropriate for our makeup or our match money.
Were you finished, Ms. Lindsay?
Go ahead.
Ms. Cope, you made mention of that there were deadlines. We're rapidly approaching deadlines. What happens if we were to exceed the deadlines of getting this done?
Well, it's my understanding. Now, I don't know this. I'm not an expert on what the codes are, what the vehicle codes are, but I know that there's a mandate that I believe every 5 years, the police department needs to validate speed limits, speed surveys, such that they are permitted to issue citations. And there's some legislation that requires municipalities to go through that process to make sure they're current in validating speeds for their roadways, such that they can legally write citations. So we're right up against that. Now, we've had one extension. Our former Public Works Director was permitted to allow a 1-year extension using the same speed survey data that we've had. So we're approaching that expiration date. So we're very fortunate that we have this grant funding to allow us to proceed immediately with performing these speed surveys to ensure that we don't get into a expiration where we're not legally able to write citations.
Did this go out to bid as well, or is this a sole source?
Oh, this isn't a bid, sir. No, this is an RFP. These are professional services. We cannot go out to bid for professional services. We went out with an RFQ to determine qualified engineering firms. We then determined by committee, by scoring of those RFQs, who was the most qualified consultant to provide those services. We solicited from 3 different engineering firms. 2 of them responded, and we selected the one that we felt met the criteria and was most qualified.
What did this run 5 years ago when we did it before?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information for you at hand, sir.
Did we do it 5 years ago like this with a grant? I mean, I know it was before my time, but I don't recall ever reading about this. Is this something we've done with a grant in the past?
I don't believe so.
That's what I'm saying.
This is a new grant program,
yes.
And it's funded by the state, and its purpose is to identify where problems exist within the community for traffic and pedestrian problems, looking at crash data, also looking at stop sign warrants, and preparing a report to identify safety projects that we can then apply for our Highway Safety Improvement Program grants that allows us to become more successful in obtaining those safety grants.
Other public comment? I'm sorry, other council comment? Any public comment?
Actually, I guess it's a question. Dave Matthews again. Is this one of those deals where you go out, put the counters down and check the speed of vehicles going by and so on and so forth. Because I've experienced in the past that, well, first of all, I've noticed that the volume on some of our streets has greatly increased. I've been around here a while, so I've noticed it. And also, in that volume, I've noticed that the speeds are going probably sometimes a little bit faster than the speed limit posted. So if we go out and measure these speeding cars, does that mean that we have to post the speed limit higher?
Well, Mr. Matthews, it is entirely possible. Yes, the requirements for speed surveys is that you look at you total the speeds, or you total the number of vehicles and their speeds, and you look at the 85th percentile of what those speeds are for that number of vehicles. And you can establish that speed limit then based upon what that 85th percentile speed happens to be. Now, there is some latitude there. I think you can administratively make an adjustment of 5 miles an hour down or up, and it's at the discretion of the Public Works Director as designated as our traffic engineer.
Well, I think the Public Works Director is the wrong person. I think it should be the police department. But, yeah, okay, well, that puts some limit on it. But eventually I'm wondering, where can this stop? People see the posted sign and they go faster, and then you take another survey and it shows that everybody's going faster, but there are limitations on the street, and there's other factors that I think should be involved.
Most certainly, sir. Yes, the character of the street is taken into consideration for establishing the speed limit. The number of driveways there might be, crosswalks.
It'd be interesting to find out what some of those are sometime.
There's criteria that has to be
where can I
for
find
the
them
character
now?
of the roadway that has to be factored in.
Do you know if they're published somewhere that I could look at them?
I believe I could probably produce something for you. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Hang on just a second. The AAA has an online, explains the 85th percentile fairly well. So if you go to type in 85th percentile and find the AAA one, the American Automobiles Association, they explain it quite well.
Okay, thank you.
I have that brochure as well for you.
Good evening, Mr. Colt. Mike Neal. Let's address one of the first questions at council about this, the funding. I personally do not think that the Measure V funds are appropriate for this expenditure. This should be a general fund expenditure. Measure V from the very start was for fixing the roads. This is not about fixing roads. So council can decide about that as they wish. The other thing, it just occurred to me, and this might be a pipe dream. I noticed that we had this propensity over the years to continue to add stoplights at numerous intersections that were previously either two-way or four-way stops. If it's possible to include in this study what would occur if you had at various intersections just simply a four-way stop instead of the light. There's many times, and I've heard lots of people say, well, they used to be able to just stop and watch for the traffic and go on, and now they got to sit for 3 minutes at a stoplight. Then nobody's coming across the street. I've observed that myself, even after the work that we paid a lot of money for to sync up the lights and supposedly and so forth and so on. So maybe that could be done in the process. It'd be real easy to turn the lights to blinking red and turn them into four-way stops. And let's see, there was something else here, but I forgot, so I guess it's not real important. Thank you.
There is a manual on uniform traffic control devices that says what you can and can't do at intersections, whether or not you're allowed to simply have a four-way stop based on number of lanes and crashes and things. And that's also online.
Okay, well, I mean, I assume Public Works could, they're supposed to be conversant in that. If we have the option at some of these lighted intersections, basically, if I was on the council, I would be asking that we convert as many of those stoplights to blinking red as reasonably possible, because I just have this feeling after driving in this town for 40 years that we were better off with four-way stops or regular two-way stops at numerous intersections instead of the lights itself. And now just remember the last question. I noticed that one more time we're giving this work to Wildan. And they get a lot of work from us. And you said that the various responders to the RFQ were rated, but we're only being presented with Wildan. If I was on the council, I would want to see the ratings that were done by whatever this committee was, just to see how it all came out. There are times when ratings like this are done, and it ends up being 2 or sometimes even 3 of the responders are really very, very close. And it's just getting to be curious that Wildan gets so much of the various kinds of work from the city that there's not periodically at least somebody else that comes through as the better respondent. So, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Paula Ash, obviously. As a pedestrian, because I don't drive, I do feel like that the stoplights were actually a very necessary improvement, because it ensured safety of me and other pedestrians to cross the streets, especially on John and China Lake, where I grew up and was always terrified until the stoplights came in. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Okay, no other public comment? Any other council comment?
I do share similar concerns about using Measure V funds for this, and I would probably prefer using a general fund funds for this rather than Measure V.
Ron, would that be a major problem if we switch this to general fund?
We have unallocated funds in the general fund. We can come back and we can allocate those savings. That's totally up to the council.
Does that allow us to still be in time for this grant? And if we have to go back to, at least another meeting?
Well, that's not,
two?
yeah, the allocation of funds from the general fund is not on the agenda at this point in time, so we'd have to bring it back for that approval.
So Lloyd, we can't modify this?
Well, you can approve it. You can approve it tonight and then come back at a later date and then authorize the allocation of general fund from the unallocated funds to pay for this if you wish.
Because it's on the agenda to approve it, but it suggested we take it from Measure V.
Well, you can take it initially.
Change that from Measure V to general fund would not be a.
Well, you can initially take it from Measure V if we have it in the budget, and we could make that allocation adjustment later on at any time.
It seems like this is a simple modification and wouldn't require coming back, but Lloyd?
Well, it's just a question about whether we determine that there was adequate notice, that the project is described sufficiently. So it's really a judgment call. It's just not a black and white answer.
So if we do it where we say, yes, we'll do it with a Measure V, knowing that you asking staff to come back to us to take the money and move it from Measure V, from general funds, and repay Measure V?
Sorry, say that again, please.
Just trade the money out after the fact.
Yeah, I think that's what Ron was suggesting, is approve it now and then come back later and make the change.
You do have a council-approved purchasing policy and how we deal with unallocated funds. So your own policy says you have to approve it, so it has to be agendized. But I don't think there's anything wrong with using Measure V funds now, and then coming back and just allocating those funds to replace the Measure V funds used if it's necessary.
If that accomplishes what we're trying to do and still gets us in on the grant money, I have no problem with doing that unless council does.
I'll make a motion to approve this resolution for the professional services agreement with a notation that we will be going back on a future agenda to use general fund unallocated.
To consider using general funds, correct?
Because we have to vote on it.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, so please vote.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, the next item, number 8, proposed action to approve a resolution giving authorization to award a fence construction contract to Danton Enterprises, All American Fence Erectors, and Outback Industrial Gates for Gates R Us for the City Hall security fencing gate and electrical project, and to execute the project. Sir?
Good evening. Yes, the never-ending project. We've been working on this project for quite some time. Let's see. So this is the security fence and camera systems, electrical, for enclosing the north side of the parking lot right out here out back. The fence is to enhance, one, the security of the personnel that work here, the officers and other staff, as well as we have a jail that we have to operate now that prisoners sometimes like to try to run and escape from. So that would prevent that. And we also have to ensure that the gates and the facility can handle large vehicles such as fire trucks, the transit buses, as well as putting in Knox boxes, which is a keyed system that the fire department and other emergency response vehicles have so that they can get in case of a major emergency and we can't open the gate. So the history, we originally went out to bid last of April of 2017. 4 companies attended the pre-bid walkthrough. We did not have any local contractors show up. You can see the 4 that did show up. And we only received 1 bid from All American Fence, and it was at $256,840, which was both electrical and the fence. And we believed that was high, and so we worked on the project, changed things, and put it back out to bid in August of this year. 5 companies attended our pre-bid walkthrough, 3 fence companies and 2 electrical companies. We had Sierra Fence from Ridgecrest, Red Electric, and Autos Electrical Service that showed up. We received a bid only on the fence, and again, it was American Fence Erectors that provided us our bid on the fence, and we received no electrical bids. All American Fence Erectors was the only bid that came in, and their bid for the fence is $129,330. Due to no electrical bids, Outback Industries was contacted to see if they would give us a bid, and they did. They worked very closely with All American Fence. In fact, they came at the first walkthrough. They were the electrical portion of the walkthrough in 2017. And we got a bid back for both projects that totals $237,830. So with a little bit of things that we did do to change, we were able to save about $19,000. Due to no electrical bids,
we reached out to the city attorney and, what do we do now? And they gave us their opinion and the law on what we can do. So we were able to reach out to an electrical contractor and seek that bid or solicit that bid from them. We did reach out again to the electrical companies in town that came and tried to get them to give us a bid. We tried several times, and since it is a prevailing wage job, they did not want anything to do with it. So the scope of the work, it's about 786 feet of 6-foot-high commercial privacy slotted or slated chain link fence, similar to the courtyard fence that was put in, with rails and trusses and the 3-strand wire that goes across the top. It will not protrude out, it just goes straight up and down. Then the 28 feet of a 6-foot-high trash enclosure, because the trash truck has to get to the trash. And they will not have access inside the gate, so that just goes just outside the gate. And then we'll also be putting in the 2 vehicle gates as well as 3 pedestrian gates for there'll still be access to the garden, community garden and stuff. The trenching and installation of the electrical and data conduit, one for the vehicle gates, all of the pet gates, all of the camera locations, the vehicle exit loops, and then labor, equipment, and materials. As well as because of some of the grants, which I'll talk about later, that we received, there will be cameras at the bus stop as well, right out here in front of the Kerr-McGee Center in City Hall. And they'll work, their Outback Industries and Gates will work with our IT system to integrate all of that. The system also has to integrate with our current communication center, dispatch center. We have to have the ability to open and close and monitor everything from that as well. So this is the footprint, as best we could do on Google Maps of so we could show it. That will be the red line is the fence project. The little white dots are not gates. Those are just points that, as we were clicking, trying to make a straight line, so just ignore those. This is at the courtyard, that's the same color, as close as possible to the building to be aesthetically pleasing as possible. So that's what it would look like, except the courtyard's 3 strands, as you can see, protrude outward. Ours will not do that. It will go straight up and down. Funding for the project, we just heard yesterday or the day before, we received another JAG grant for $10,428 that I'll be bringing to council for approval. That's for the for the fence project. We had our existing JAG grant that we had, and then we've received 2 Cal OES from the Office of Emergency Services grants. So total grant funding is $65,676, and I think I can't see it up there, I think it's 28% of the total project. And then the impact fees would be the remaining amount, and that's $172.54, which would be 72% of the project, which the total is $237,830. Any questions?
Go back. Let me see the map showing what you want, what we're boxing in here. We're talking about having this fence along this...
Along the tree line, yes.
Where you turn along the street. So when you go to the park, we're going to be looking at that big ugly fence?
Yes.
I'm going to be honest with you, and the numbers are not, the numbers are kind of alarming to me. I know you've been working on this a long time, Jed, but we're doing this Freedom Park thing and splash pads and stuff and whatever, trying to have this family environment. Having a prison gate with a barbed wire along the top of it, to me, does not look well, suggest well, play well for our Flag Day deal, anything. And as far as right around the back of the police office, I don't know that we have a problem with prisoners escaping. I didn't know that we had any. But if we have one or two, bad guys, and I don't really think we have a problem with people coming into the police department. If I were a thief, I dang sure wouldn't want, if I'm going to go rob somebody in town, I'm not going to jump the dang fence and go in to mess with the police car. I mean, I'm just not going to do it. Maybe somebody else will. So, I drove it tonight and I looked at it, and I know you're not going to be happy, but I just looked at it and I said, I guess I'm not, two things. I'm not happy with the price. I understand the prevailing wage. We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
But if the prevailing wage if it's true that there's nothing we can do about it, I mean, it's just, by gosh, that's it. Well, then there's some projects, in my opinion, that we just don't do, because I just don't, unless it's, I would rather see $300,000 put into the poor senior center. I mean, they're fighting like heck to get the roads fixed so they can get the bus in so they don't break their ankles. If we're going to take $300,000, I just would rather see it done like that rather than something like this. I really object to putting this along Freedom Park here. I mean, that's not an attractive fence. That looks like an institutional, police-type fence, and I think it's going to greatly send a negative message to the folks who are using that park. I think we're shooting our toes off.
Other council comment?
Just seeing how many problems you've had with this and the amount, I too am concerned, and just wondered if we didn't consider there's an existing fence not around this large of area, but around a smaller portion, and if we couldn't just modify that part a little bit with some enclosures. I would think that would be a much cheaper option, and also I think that fence is much nicer looking than the one was shown here.
Are you referring to the wrought iron fence?
Yes.
I'm not sure it would be much cheaper, even doing the small area with wrought iron. It's
no,
pretty expensive.
Leaving the wrought iron.
Yeah,
that's already there.
It's got to come out. It's all rotted out for the majority of it. Most of it's falling down.
Well, let me ask you this. Normally, and forgive me, but this has been, you said, a couple of years, right? So we came in 2016. If this happened before my time, what normally before we get into a project of creating a need for this or establishing why do we need to do this? I mean, were people getting in and breaking in or damaging the police cars or equipment? What is the overriding need to spend this on this project?
Well, it's a security issue. As most people know, not everybody likes cops. And I had a slide in here with several incidents right here in California of one, police being shot in the back lot and being attacked. And so our own sheriff's department used to leave their gates open until they had escapees, which now they close when the bus comes in. And we have had people run out as soon as the car door opens and flee out, and then you have to go find them. So we have had those things here as well.
But this blocks the actual street from the public drive. We can't drive through there now. There's a big gate.
There is no street there. That's a parking lot.
Huh?
That's not a street, sir.
It's being used as a street.
It's being used as a street.
But that's been part of the problem. When this originally came before us a year and a half ago, one of the reasons is people are using it for a street, and they've almost hit some police cars. They're speeding through there.
We've had right there at the corner, if you see where Wheels at and you follow that red line, you see that corner there? We've had accidents right there because of guys coming and going out of that area. Because it's kind of a
So we're talking about a camera
corner
right there, and then anytime the police want to come in there, they got a call, and the guy's got to do this and put buttons and electronics to open a big gate right there at Freedom Park.
Well, on both sides, sir. Yes.
On both sides?
Yes.
Okay, forgive me, Jed, and I don't mean to be opposite. I really don't like it. I don't like it. Aesthetically, the price, I think, is way overboard. I mean, I can't imagine such a thing on this prevailing wage. We've got to get this under control some kind of way. $300,000 to put some barbed wire, a camera, and some thing. I bet I could get bids for $50,000. I realize prevailing wage. But to me, the number is very high, and I think it's going to look ugly and dampen the whole spirit of the family-friendly park. I'm not seeing the need for this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Eddie?
Well, not to defend it one way or the other, but I know for a fact that I used to, when I first was on council, used to park back here in this parking lot. And my car got vandalized with some racial writing on it. And I was told to park my car in a place where the cameras were at, because even back there where the police cars are at was not even safe. So there are issues that go on back there.
Well, maybe I'm not opposed to cameras. That's nice and happy, and you can have somebody monitor them with other cameras and your IT folks, and I have no problem with that. But police gates and barbed wire and stuff around Freedom Park, cameras are fine. I just don't think we need that. At some point in the future, we start having a lot of, commotion, and, our jails fill up, and we have some vandalism, and then, I don't know. And I realize these take, in the fullness of time, as Winston Churchill said, it's just in the full of everything in the government is years down the road. So, it's like, I don't know why that is, but it is. So I don't mean to put a damper on something that you've been working on for a long, because I don't like that. But I really don't like, I don't see the need for it. That's all.
I'd like to weigh in on this a little bit. I was the chief of police when we initially brought this project up. We've been working on it for years. We are probably one of only, I don't know, very many other police departments that don't have a secure parking lot for their vehicles, nor do we have a police department that doesn't have a secure parking lot for its jail. I don't think we could really find any that don't have that. I do believe we have a duty to protect our employees and our officers, and we also have the duty to protect our prisoners. Just because we have not had somebody come in and try to rescue somebody from custody and injure somebody doesn't mean that we have to wait until that happens before we do. That road has been an issue for a significant amount of time for people using that as a pass-through. We've had a significant number of close calls through there. That's one significant reason. It's not a public road. It's not open to the public. It's marked and people ignore it. I think, we're using grant funding that if we don't use it for this, we give it back, which is fine. The funding we're using for this is not general fund money. This is impact money for this specific purpose. So, yes, we are going to encroach a little bit into the park because we have emergency operation vehicles that we need to secure and park. We'd eventually like to put covered parking over it because I think we have a responsibility to protect that property that we've purchased that has sometimes a significant life cycle if we treat it right. So I think we need to have it. I don't think we need to have something significant happen. I think if you look at the industry, everybody has it. I think it makes sense. And I think at the end of the day, we have a duty and an obligation to protect our employees.
Could we not look at moving the fence line inside of the trees and around the community garden so it's tucked in more and not so visible?
If we did, right now we do not have enough parking space in there for what we need to put in there in the first place. We'd like to be able to secure our equipment and be able to project that if we grow in the future, we have a few extra parking spaces. Because if we build it to capacity now and we grow, then we're just expending money to expand it out.
But we have all of these other parking spaces along here that then we could say regular employees can't use anymore. They can use this other area off to the side. Sorry. Well, there's no way for me. The straight area along there, you're gaining all of those spaces being in a secured area, and you could just have regular employees park over in that area off the diagonal side. Many employees park over there now. But
like I said, we discussed this at length for the last couple of years, and it's unfortunate that it took this long to get to council. I mean, obviously, staff will do whatever council directs, but you do understand that if we readjust that, we have to have it redesigned and we start all over again. We have to pay somebody to redesign that fence and the electrical. And so, we've been working on this for a while. There's a lot of municipalities, there's a lot of civic centers that have police departments adjacent to their facilities, and I think it's just a matter of people understand that you have to protect those police areas. I think that's just common knowledge.
Is there other council comment?
I'm just assuming these gates, like if electricity went out, you'd be able to.
They have the ones that we're looking at have backup power, and then plus our backup generator it kicks on.
Who's going to monitor these gates when people come and go? Who's paid to do all that?
It goes through our dispatch center.
You gotta lean forward.
Okay, so the dispatch is going to watch another
public.
camera to watch for people coming and going through that gate?
There won't be any people coming and going. It's just other than employees. This is not open to the public back there.
Okay.
Is there any other council comment?
Is there room, I think, and I can't recall, if someone drives down this road because they've been used to driving through here, are they expected to back out? Because there's not space to turn around, so
We are designing a turnaround space just for that purpose.
Okay.
Is there any public? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just could say, I have found, because I stopped going through there as much as I used to, I go out around the Kerr McGee Center, and you can get out that way. If you want to use it as a roadway.
And then, is this going to be something, one other concern is if someone tried to block those two gates?
You mean from opening up?
Yeah, like
They
if someone
slide.
parks.
They
No,
slide.
if someone parks their car like in front of it.
Which is possible, but the gate on the west side there, which would be this over on this road, this towards Warner, there's two car. It's big enough for two vehicles to go through, so it'd have to be pretty big, and then we would just have to move it out of the way.
You bet.
Is there a reason why we stopped using the wrought iron one?
Man, that was before I started. It was dilapidated then.
When we moved in here in 1990, that fence was not secure. We had a gate that came down that all you had to do was shove any credit card in there and it would open up, and there was walk spaces that went through. This parking lot was never secured from day one, and over time it just rotted. It just rotted away. In fact, I think we've had some of it taken out because it fell over. It's well past its service life.
And the impact fees are just police impact fees? Is
Correct.
that
Public safety, yes.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other council comment? Is there any public comment?
Ronald Porter. I think they ought to have the fence inside those bushes as well because it hides the fence. But beyond that, and I don't think it would change anything, my question is on the gates and the electrical there. The problem with those is it has to be researched, and I'm not saying you did or didn't do it. But I think they have to have something in the plan for a maintenance on it, that because those things have become very specialized. And when you have electrical gates, they become a maintenance nightmare. And a lot of those electrical things don't work as well as they should, and they fail. And I'm just saying, you need to look at this. What package are we buying, and why do we want it?
Yeah, the fence contractor, actually, there are several different types of those mechanisms, as you are aware. And the one at the courtyard is open and closed a lot, and so far it's been pretty good. So throughout the years that it's been operational, and like anything, something's going to break. It's just a matter of when. So yeah, we're aware that there are those issues. If the mechanism did break, you can still open it by hand. Just release the tension, which is it's a simple process on the inside. So if you meant by getting in and out, we'd still be able to get in and out. And then as far as the different mechanisms because they are a lot of different chain-driven, hydraulic, all kinds of different openers. And he's recommending one that has been tried and tested on a lot bigger projects than this. So
I wasn't talking about the physical opener. I was talking about the electrical system, the card card machines.
Yeah, this isn't a card. It would be just a keypad type.
It's just going to be a keypad?
Yeah, like what we have at the rest of the city. And then there'll be the cars will have openers in them, and dispatch can open and close it from inside of there as well. So
they're going to have
electronically
openers.
The
you mean like a garage door opener?
Yeah.
Okay. The reason I was asking because it's the electrical part that usually becomes a maintenance nightmare, and that's something you want to see if maybe not in this particular one to see is what kind of maintenance agreements they have on those, because generally they're a whole lot cheaper to have them come out and make sure they work.
Right.
Than trying to find someone when you really need it.
Yep.
That's my suggestion because they just end up being a major headache.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Good evening, Chief.
How you doing, sir?
So I looked at the numbers here given for the fence itself. Let's start with that. It's got 796 feet of fence at $129,000. That comes out to $162 a foot for this fence. Now, typical 6-foot chain link, you can get a Google and real quick you can come up anywhere between $7 and $15 to $20 a linear foot for 6-foot chain link. And then you've got, of course, you do have the barbed wire section on top, and then I just realized tonight you got the slats in there, and pretty sure that adds quite a bit of cost because somebody's got to stick every little slat down through the chain link. So time intensive. So this is really expensive fence, and you are expanding the area you want to enclose quite a bit. So I would have a hard time if I was on council approving this kind of a cost for a chain link barbed wire topped fence. I'd want to go find some alternatives just onto the basic cost of it. As far as the area, I understand wanting to expand it somewhat, but it looks like you're actually trying to expand the enclosed area quite a bit. If we're being like really cost thrifty here, we would just improve the fencing that we got right now, or if it's actually falling apart. We were told that the stanchions on the gazebo in Freedom Park were about to fall over because the columns were rusting, and it turns out it was surface rust, and you scrape it off and you repaint it, and you're good to go. So, I'm going to take your word that it's going to fall over.
I challenge you, sir, to go out where our back door is at and just pull on that fence.
Pull over?
It's just, if anybody went out there for the canine demo, we had to zip tie it together so that it wouldn't fall.
You probably ought to go ahead and just take it down then if that's the case for safety's sake. As far as the slats and the look, I think whatever we do, at least on, say, the one side next to the park, it shouldn't have the slats in it, and that makes it just kind of see-through like it is right now, and doesn't look like a institutional site blockading kind of a thing, making itself super visible over there. So I'm sorry, I just really have a problem thinking that paying $162 a lineal foot for fence is anywhere near what we ought to be paying for that kind of fence. And the gates, basically the same thing. I mean, talking $50,000 per gate, essentially. I mean, I'm going to be tempted to call a friend of mine who lives up in Idaho who does protective type fencing, gates, stuff like that, and just get a rough cost, from him. He's in Washington, but they can contract these things out across distance, and just to get a reality check. I'm just what's involved here is essentially just a moving piece of chain link fence on rollers, and you got some kind of electrical actuator, and then you got cameras and stuff. But cameras, unless we're paying a whole lot for cameras these days, cameras are not really expensive, and you could cover that whole area if you don't already have it covered with cameras in order to surveil the thing and see who's coming and going or whatever. I mean, have we had actual vandalism on the cars?
Not on.
Eddie just said he had.
Mr. Thomas has.
Yours was written on or something, or?
Yes, we have in the past where we've had people put nails at the back of the tires when the officers pulled forward.
We had a lot of flat tires for a while.
Oh, okay, well, you should have some cameras out there, obviously, at the very minimum. I mean, I thoroughly understand the need with the. I assume your jail entrance is right back there by the parking lot. You need that.
Yes, sir.
Fenced for runaways. So you do need to do something. I just think, I was going to offer an alternative, and then I see that all the monies here you're talking about are grants or the impact fees. But explain the impact fees that you're talking about using.
It's the impact fees from that the city collects that are for public safety improvements, capital improvements. So it has to be used for capital projects, such as things like this. So that's what that money is.
Okay, so that's a specified funding stream that has to be spent only for
capital projects, yes.
Infrastructure, capital improvements. Okay. I mean, granted, that's what that's for, but understanding, I think, somewhat city finances, if you spend the impact fees on this or whatever, then the city's not going to have to spend out of the general fund. But if you spend fewer impact fees on this, you can spend those on something else that city might not have to actually pay for, and thereby are basically going to save the city overall. So I would really like to see cost saving significant on this, because I think it's hard to think that we can't find some significant cost savings. And then what you save, so you got this big pool thing, use it to somewhat to your advantage, and say, well, we were going to spend this on the fence. We're going to take this $50,000. We're putting it in a pool fund, and that'll buy you a lot of political capital. Thanks.
Unfortunately, Mr. Neal, we can't use law enforcement impact fees on the pool. And one of the other reasons why the cost is a little bit higher, we are using heavier gauged poles in the construction of the fence. And I will say that we can maybe plant the oleanders back along that fence there, and over time they can grow. If we plant them a little bit far enough away from the fence, we can screen that fence over time. So that could be an idea if that is a significant concern.
Yeah, that's a good option. But I do think there's a way to always a way to shuffle funds around and save money on this. You can basically save the city that much, and then they can have it for other uses.
Next, please.
Dave Matthews, I'm sorry that I haven't didn't look at this before the meeting. I've had some problems here. I never got to it. But did I understand you to say there was going to be cameras at the bus stop out front?
At yes, out in front of that's part of one of the grants for the transit system.
Well, there's not going to be any fence out there, is there?
No fence. No fence.
Okay, because I couldn't make out where that was, and I didn't have a chance.
I don't want to put in any more fence.
Read up. But where's the fence around around Freedom Park? Is that just on one side?
It's on that side right there.
Okay. All right, I understand.
It's just one little strip.
Right.
It's not a round Freedom
Yeah,
Park.
it's right there, sir, at the strip going closest to Mr. Martin.
I'm sorry, I can't see it from here anyway. So, did you mention also that there were animal gates or something, or animal
No, sir, pedestrian gates?
pedestrian gate? I
Right.
thought I heard you say something about animals.
Not this time, no, sir.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, the canine. We were talking about the canine demonstration. Maybe that's what you heard.
No, is there? It's a gate, walk-through gate, like
Yes, sir.
a person can go through.
Yeah, pedestrian
Oh,
gates.
okay. No, because I thought there was going to be something where animals that got trapped could get out or something like that.
Oh.
And I was going to give you a little anecdote. Well, I still can. But you're all familiar with doggy doors? Well, my grandson had a girlfriend that he got. One of the reasons he started liking her was because she was small enough to crawl through the doggy doors. Anyway.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment?
Marilyn Neal. You probably, you kind of already answered this question, but I am concerned about us spending this much money when, can you tell us how many instances have we had? It doesn't sound like from what Mr. Strand said, we've really had that many instances. I mean, we've had some vandalism on the cars, okay, but other than that, have we had employees attacked? Have we had
No.
escapees?
We have had escapees. To my knowledge, no employees attacked yet.
Okay, can you give us an idea of how many you're talking about over, say, the last 3 to 5 years?
We've had 3 to 5 years, a couple. We probably had two that ran over into the Balsam area. We got them over there. A couple that have tried, but they were caught quickly. You got to remember, we just started using that facility back there when our jail, then the county jail closed. We didn't utilize it that much before then. It was probably used a few times a month before that. And now it's utilized all day, all night, every day. Something that only came about as, a year and a half ago. So the traffic that has been coming in and out of there the past year and a half or whenever the jail closed is increased tenfold. I mean, we're from going to just, a few people a month to 1,200 to 1,500 yearly is a big change for us.
Well, I do support, taking care of our employees and our police, and that's understandable, and our equipment. I would say, though, that one consideration in light of trying to save money on this, if we have all the security cameras, what are we really gaining by the added expense of putting all the slats in? I mean, so people can, people that really wanted to see in could still see in.
We were just trying to blend it with the building, is the slats. The slats create more of an, it doesn't blend exactly, but, if you add a little bit there, it just doesn't look like old chain link fence.
Mm.
I mean, obviously, we'd love to put block wall, but I think when Chief Avery was here, we got a bid on that, and it was some ungodly amount of money. So,
well, I have to say I kind of agree somewhat with Mr. Martin that it's not real appealing. One other suggestion, perhaps, is what about putting the wrought iron fence against the Freedom Park area and have your chain link around the other. Perhaps that's a little more attractive, maybe,
Right.
and I don't see that taking in as much of that area as you have right now.
I would be fine with
necessary.
that. In looking at it, Marilyn, I'd be fine. I'm just concerned about Freedom Park, Jed.
Okay.
The rest of it is ugly parking lot anyway, just ugly back parking lot. So the only thing I care about is Freedom Park, and I just don't want a prison thing up there. If you want to put it, you insist on this tall thing, then you can use green slats just for that and tan slats for the rest or something. But you have to do something to mitigate the look of this around Freedom Park.
Well,
Or you can also just use the fence and spray it green, dark green, so it blends in, and I just don't want it to look like a prison fence.
Well, what we could do is we could plant some bushes that over time
get
will
tall
grow to
enough.
that height and it'll cover it. We could do that.
Oh, that would be fine, but that has to be, that sounds good.
Yeah.
But that has to be in the plan, and then you got to have the garden to take care of all the vines. I don't know.
Well, I think with the watering of the grass there, because we're going to have to move the irrigation anyway, and because that is sprinkler fed.
We could do it at the same time.
We could do it at the same time by putting the bubblers in. It's not that great of an expense.
Well, honeysuckle, because I know from 30 years experience, in 6 months you won't see anything.
And it smells
It
good.
would look nice, but you have to
Yeah.
have water. That's it. You can throw a couple of seeds, boom, done.
Yeah, the problem with honeysuckle is that it dies out every year, and so you'd
okay,
have.
well-
So the best thing would probably be the oleander. You can hardly kill it out here,
Right.
and we could just
Well,
put
I'd be
that in at
okay
the same
with that.
time.
Okay.
That'd be that's a great idea.
you do have to, I think you might want to consider too about oleanders are great. They're beautiful. They grow fast. They don't, they're drought tolerant. But with being in a park area, you might want to just think about that. Consider it, is that safe?
We already have oleanders.
You've got oleanders there
There's
already.
already oleanders
then
there.
That's, yeah. My vote then would be, chain link might be good if it was covered well, but personally, I think the wrought iron on this side, then put some plants, whatever you want to do, that'd be even better.
Well, also, if you've got kids playing soccer or something, right, and the ball goes, of course, the thing's going to be locked anyway, so, but I don't know.
They can come around the PD and ask for it. We'll let the kids in. But I think that you have to understand is when you start looking at changing the security of it, you're only as secure as your weakest link. And so if we put wrought iron out there with 6-inch, holes in it, it doesn't take much.
And
to
wrought
be able
iron's
to,
very expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive. It doesn't take much to put a little car jack in there and expand it out and get right in. So.
Yeah, but if we had oleanders, how are you going to do that without taking this back to committee 6 months and another $100,000?
I don't think we need
Make sure
to.
it's done.
Yeah,
I'll just make sure it's done.
Yeah, the irrigation's already going to be done by
When they're doing it, I'll make sure that they're there.
I'll vote for it if you care one way or the other. I'll vote for it if you put the plants in there, but I
Yes.
don't want it without the plants.
The plants will be there.
We'll put the plants in.
I'll make sure the
Y'all
plants
all
will be
hearing
there.
that? They're putting the plants.
The plants will be
Start
there.
hearing that, putting plants. Okay, then I'll vote for it.
If I got to buy those plants myself, they'll be there.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding on that part.
I make a motion that we accept this with the plants.
Yeah.
I think we beat this long enough.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry. There are trees all along there already.
We're going to relocate them, utilize them. So we might be able to.
Okay. Or I was asking if the fence.
Jason's going to try to
No,
relocate.
she's talking about the trees on the north side.
Oh, a lot of those are dead.
Yeah, there are a lot of
Some of them are dead. Anything that's living, we're going to try to relocate.
So you're going to relocate. So the fence is going to force those to be removed.
Yes.
Okay.
The last question I heard at the last time we talked about this was the public would be able to get into the garden.
Yes.
You've already covered that.
Yes.
So, just so everyone knows. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Well, I was going to make some comments, but I'll just vote.
You go ahead.
No, I'll vote.
Oh, sorry.
Wait for you to put it up. There it is.
Thank you.
Lindsay? Oh, sorry. Okay.
I was just going to comment that, my son-in-law used to work here, and he moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, and then to Gilbert, Arizona. And the security systems, those two police departments, will make this look sick. I mean, police departments are going to a lot of security because they need it. And I think we've spent 25, 30 minutes arguing about it, and I think it's a necessity. Just my personal
Okay,
opinion.
the next item. we? Number 9, thank you. Proposed action to approve a resolution authorizing city manager to enter into a development impact fee deferral agreement with Terry Metcalf and Kelly Smith Metcalf. Ron?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Just a little information on the current ongoings of our rental market in town. As you know, that the base this last year hired approximately 600 new engineers. Some of that were new hires, new positions. A lot of them were replacing folks that are retiring. Next year, they're looking at approximately 11% of their workforce retiring, which is about another 600 employees, and they're looking at replacing those over next year, with the possibility of plus upping a few more. And so, staff was tasked with working with the developers to find a way of bringing multifamily housing in the area. We've also had the help with some local realtors, with IWV EDC, and working in an effort to find folks that will come in and put this multifamily housing within the community. We currently have 2 projects that we're working on. One specifically that we're talking about tonight is Sun Development. Now, there's a difference in how multifamily is financed versus single family. Typically, single family, the builder takes a loan, or the owner of the property takes a loan. The place is built, the loan's paid back. Multifamily, normally it's built, and then the payment's made back with the revenue from the rental units. Now, in working with this developer in an effort to try and make this project fundable, we're working with a way of trying to reduce their upfront costs, at least temporarily, to allow them to be able to start building their project. And their project is a 192-unit apartment complex off of Bataan, a little bit south of Walmart. They want to build it in 2 phases, starting off with I believe it's 96 units, the first phase, and the equivalent, the second phase. One of the things that they're hoping to do is to reduce their upfront cash flow, and we do have a way of reducing that. The city does collect development impact fees, as well as most every community within the state. Our impact fees are not that great. However, we do have to collect them, but in this case, we have a way of deferring them for a period of time at a market rate interest rate to allow the builder to begin his project, and then within a 4-year period of time be able to pay back the city those deferral fees with interest, so the city doesn't lose any money, thus creating any sort of public subsidy towards the agreement. So what this agreement is an agreement between the city and Mr. and Mrs. Metcalf to defer the development fees, impact fees, for up to 4 years at market rate interest in an effort to make this project fundable or desirable through the investors. And the amounts we're looking at is an approximate amount of about a total of $979,542 for the first phase, and then $436 for the second phase. I'm here to answer any of your questions.
I was under the impression for the last few years we have not been paying the impact fees until final. On single-family dwellings, that's what we've been doing.
Yes, we can, but they're looking at, they're looking at building these things, and it's like I said, it's quite a bit of money. And this way here, this will go beyond their final, their
so they won't be paying the
occupancy.
impact fees at final. They'll be paying them later.
They will pay them within 4 years after they pull their first building permit. So if they pull their first building permit January 1st of 2019, they have until January 1st of 2023 to pay the city back the money.
So we're going to give them a final and let them move people in and everything before they pay the impact fees?
Correct. And the security on that will be a lien on the property.
Okay, we did that for at least one motel in town. Have we ever gotten paid those impact fees?
I don't know what you're referring to.
the motel south of Bank of America, and then the sister motel down south of Upjohn there. Those two motels did not have the money to pay the impact fees to get open, and we allowed them to open. This city council, well, I don't know if those two were on there, but the city council voted to defer their impact fees, and they were going to be paying them on a monthly basis, I think. I'm just curious if they ever did.
I don't know. I know that I believe those two projects were built when the RDA was still.
No. They were built
afterwards. I can check. I don't know.
They were finalized right after we got on council, I think. You guys remember that, don't you? You remember the deferral of the impact fees?
Yeah.
You don't?
Well, this here would be a.
It happened while the three of us were on council. So it's happened within the last 4 years, and the RDA was gone long before that. And we were asked to defer it, and they were going to make monthly payments of the impact fees, and I'm just curious where we are on that.
I can check. I have no idea. I know that we, with the help of Mr. Pilcham, he drafted this document. We worked back and forth with the developer to get it to where we were all in agreement. Like I said, this enables the developer to begin construction on these apartment complexes, and I don't know if anybody's here representing them, whether or not, if this doesn't go through, whether or not the multifamily complex will be built. I don't know. But I do know this was significant for them to be able to move forward with their investors.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah. I know in this case here,
this is not tied. This is they're going to pay them within 4 years, whether they make a profit or not.
Correct.
Okay. Because I know we got screwed on that apartment complex over on Downs because that was going to be paid back with profits, and the investment company is the one that makes the profits, so the apartments don't, so we never get any money back.
Yeah, that was a different structure. That was one that they could basically state whether or not they made profit or not, and that was you're talking about the senior housing project that was
the senior project on the west side of Downs, south of Ridgecrest Boulevard.
Correct.
Next to the charter school.
Correct.
I don't think we've ever got any money paid back from them because they don't show a profit. It's real easy to make an apartment complex not show a profit.
Correct. But this is different. This is a lien on their property. The other one, we don't have a lien on their property.
Okay.
And I believe that was part of litigation, if I'm not mistaken, that we're currently engaged in. I believe it's under appeal.
What's the apartments?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would like you to investigate and report back on if the impact fees have ever been paid on those two hotels.
Right. I do know the developer is very interested in breaking ground here shortly. I know they want to get moving. We do have another development. There was a 22 apartment complex that was approved, phase 1. They want to start building their 92 units as soon as they can. I know they're interested.
Well, I'm not looking at holding this up,
right,
waiting for that information. Like
I said, we're just doing everything we can to try and get it to where this thing's moving forward. We cannot create a public subsidy, so they have to pay us the impact fees. They have to pay us with interest. So we're covering the city in that regard. We're gonna lien the property to protect the money. And the issue is that if they don't build, we have no impact fees anyway.
That's correct.
And we do have the base that needs this housing. I think that everybody has come to that understanding. And the direction that staff got is let's make this thing happen. Let's find ways of getting the development moving. I think this is just one of several we're employing.
I'll just add deferral of impact fees is specifically allowed in our municipal code.
But normally not past notice of completion.
I didn't see that restriction in the municipal code.
I guarantee you I cannot get a final on a home without paying the impact fees up front.
Okay. So I was looking at this Exhibit B with the developmental impact fees breakdown, and I find it concerning that there's $400,000 in drainage impact fees alone. That just seems really high.
Actually, it's not. It should probably be raised, but I'm not going to request that at this point in time. We do have a master drainage plan that we've hardly touched. And those fees are designed to fund that master drainage plan that we have for our 1,500-year events. Without this impact fee, we'd have to come out of general fund to address any of those projects. I know we have one project we're looking at working on this year, which is undergrounding the Bowman Channel beneath Norma Street because it's problematic during rainstorms. We do plan on, as this fund increases, we do plan on doing those projects that were approved by council several years ago after our big flood, so we can mitigate some of the significant effects of a future event. And this is how the previous councils had structured us to be able to do this. So that's what those funds are for.
I have a couple of questions. The idea of securing the impact fees, the payment of the impact fees. Sorry, I'm on. Can y'all hear me? Securing the impact fees by having a lien on the property secures that. I think that is protecting the city and its investment and making sure, not its investment, their payment to the city. I think it's good that these projects are coming in. We need them. No one can argue about that. One of the things I'm concerned, and somebody came and spoke to me today and asked me, when the next developer comes in and says, I want to defer all my impact fees, do we have a criteria to determine that we will be giving impact, we will be securing impact fees without a criteria or a plan in place? Could you address that, please?
Well, the municipal code allows us to do it, and I would never do it without coming to council and securing council permission, and we would definitely not do it without an agreement between the city and the requesting party, and then some sort of security that we're going to get repaid.
Okay, so developer B comes in and says, you did this for them. I want you to do the same thing for me. Given the similar criteria, given the idea that we know that more and more apartments or homes or whatever are going to be needed for our future as more and more people come in, how is there any criteria to say no?
Well, I guess, if somebody came in and said they wanted to, waive their impact fees on a single-family dwelling after they've already been the loan repaid by the bank, after construction, I may have an issue with that because those impact fees should be paid back at the time that the house is purchased and the loan's paid back. In that case, I don't think I would agree with that. But I think if we have a specific public need, like in this case where we need multifamily housing to be able to address our number one employer's need, which is multifamily housing, then I think we're justified to come and ask council for permission to defer it. All we're doing is, in this case here, I believe that if we don't do this, there's a strong chance this development may not come in. And so then we're not going to be collecting the deferred fees anyway. So this way here, we can get them in, we can get them on the ground. The base is going to be hiring folks. We've been told that I don't know if Mr. O'Neill or Mr. Janis wants to get up and talk to this topic, but there is a strong potential of 11% of the workforce retiring next year, and I guess if we can assume that everybody that retires is going to leave town, then we'll have the room for the new people to come in. Those go out and new come in. But if we have people that stay, we may have an issue, a significant issue that may affect the mission of the base. And we're always concerned with BRACs and everything else to that nature.
I have no problem approving this, given that the impact fees are secured with a lien on the property, and that we have reasons we can justify why this is okay. And each one, I guess I'm looking for each one to be looked at on an individual basis, but also with the same impartiality.
We did something similar with Red Rock when we allowed them to use their impact fees for the drainage and for the roadway. And the use of those fees were appropriate because they fit the reason for the impact fees themselves. We have another case coming up with another development on West Drummond. Same thing, we're asking for improvements on the roadway. The developer's building a couple of tracks. Those tracks are adjacent to an arterial within town, so it's probably more inappropriate to use those traffic impact fees to improve those roads, because there's no reason to hit that developer twice.
I agree, and that's why I wanted to bring up the other places where it's done, because I think some of the developers had thought this was something unique only to this project. And so I wanted us to make sure that everybody understood it. Is there any other council comment? I will, but I just want to see, is there any other council comment? Not everybody has commented. No. Okay, public comment, please. No public comment. Okay, no other council comment? Okay, were you going to make a...
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Motion?
I move approval to authorize the development impact fee deferral.
Okay, I'll second.
All in favor? Or not? Okay. 5-0. Okay. The next item is proposed action to approve a resolution to approve a professional services agreement with the engineering firm of...
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Heather, could you announce the vote, please?
I'm sorry.
It's
Yes.
part of the rules. Sorry.
Do you want to announce them?
Yeah, announce the vote.
5-0.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Motion carried.
Yes, motion carried.
We need to do that. I don't know that we've done that. I'm just asking.
I mean, it's on the record. So, Heather, next time.
I just thought.
Okay, item number 10, proposed action to approve a resolution to approve a professional services agreement with the engineering firm of Quadcoff in the amount of $69,810 to prepare environmental document plans and specifications for the West Dolphin Avenue congestion mitigation air quality project between College Heights Boulevard and South China Lake Boulevard. Authorize the city manager, Ron Strand, to execute the agreement, and authorize the finance director to amend the budget to reflect all appropriate capital revenue and transfer accounts, and create a purchase order for QK Incorporated in the amount of $69,810. Discussion, sir.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. This item tonight is to hire an engineering firm to do the professional services of the environmental as well as design for our CMAQ project. We are successful in obtaining a construction grant for doing Dolphin Avenue between College Heights Boulevard and China Lake Boulevard. We have a grant from the feds for our CMAQ project in the amount of $700,857, and this is for construction. Our local match for this particular project is $172,100, and so we are needing to hire professional services for our environmental and our design for this project. We had solicited RFPs for the services. We had 3 firms which proposed on the project. The proposals were evaluated, and Quadnoff was selected as the most qualified engineering firm to perform these services for us. So tonight we are asking the City Council to authorize the City Manager to execute the professional services agreement We're also asking that you authorize the finance director to amend the budget to reflect all appropriate capital revenue and transfer accounts and create a purchase order for QK Incorporated in the amount of $69,810. And with that, Honorable Mayor, I'm available for questions.
Is the other 172 of local match participation, what fund is that coming from?
I don't believe that has, I believe that we, I think that's Measure V. I believe that's Measure V.
So we're
Measure V was designed also for our match money as well. When Measure V was proposed, it was for doing our street projects as well as our matching funds for our programs.
Council comments? Public comment?
Bless you.
Good evening again. Mike Neal. So I looked over this today and looked up Dolphin Street between these two intersections. And I found myself wondering, why are we doing this street? It's been the way it is, mostly dirt. For quite a while, there's about 3 residences on that street. Some people use it kind of as a through street, so they don't go through the red light to get over to College Heights. The housing development that's over on right off of College Heights, of course, has entrance from College Heights Boulevard. People there don't need that street to traverse in, and the vast majority of the stretch of that street is empty properties. So, even though, we're getting this grant to do the street, we still have to shell out $172,000 of Measure V funds to make it happen. I'd want to spend $172,000 in Measure V funds on streets that a lot more people were making use of in town that is knocking their vehicles apart because they're in such crummy condition. So I would really not be inclined to work this street. It really just doesn't look like that things wouldn't be just fine leaving it the way it is. So that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Any other council comment?
I just wanted to clarify because it says 172 is being used as local match, and then we're allocating an additional 69 on top of that. So we're looking at 240,000 total. Is that?
That would be correct, yes.
Okay.
So the 791,000 is not does not include.
The 791 was our application amount, in which 700,000 and change was coming from the federal government, and then we're required to have a local match of 11.47% of that amount, which amounts to 172.
But the 69.8 is in addition to the 172, or not part of the 172?
It is not a part of the 172. No, this is separate funding. What got approved was for construction only, not for the engineering or the environmental compliance.
So how much
city had to come up with the funding for the design and environmental compliance.
Have we already paid out for the design?
No, we have not. No, this would initiate the design and the environmental process.
How much would the design be in addition to this amount then?
Well, it is this amount, 69,000.
So this includes the design.
Yes,
and
that
the
is the design and it's the environmental, it's the design, it's the bidding assistance, and bid analysis.
Do we have quality control?
Quality control generally falls within the construction elements, and we would be looking at quality control following the construction, during construction.
I don't understand the question of quality control, Lindsay, because I'm not. I'm trying to understand how it applies here. Are we developing the criteria for it? Is that what you're asking?
Well,
I just didn't understand where quality control came in, so help me understand that.
Well, quality control is.
I mean, I know what that is, but how does it apply to these dollars?
Well, it doesn't. Quality control applies during construction. That's where we
right.
have soils testing, we have materials testing.
Okay,
and,
okay.
We're overseeing the construction and ensuring the quality of the work and labor.
Right. But that is separate
workmanship
from this.
And materials.
I was just asking if we're hiring, if that's...
This is strictly for environmental compliance as well as design.
Okay.
So will we have to hire another person for oversight of the project?
The construction management, yes, we would have to solicit proposals for construction management.
And do we know how much that will be?
Generally, construction management can be on the order of 10 to 15% of the cost of construction.
And that's not included in the $791,000?
No, it is not.
Okay, is there any other council comment?
Well, this street is a nice shortcut to the College Heights area. I used to use it occasionally when I lived up there, but it's a very bumpy, dirty road, generates a lot of dust. So I'm sure that if we do this project, it's going to increase the traffic on that street to some degree.
Yeah, the design, I mean, the reason for the project is to reduce pollution.
Yeah.
And if, most of our development is going to move in that direction, eventually you're going to have, Norma that's going to go completely north and south. And I would assume this would be where it would eventually terminate to.
I think I'm on, right? I was just going to say that you asked if it's part of the 100 and whatever.
172,000.
The construction management is actually part of the construction contract, which is partially funded by the feds. So our piece of it would be included in that, but the rest of it would be included in the federal funds that are part of the grant. I got that right, Lauren? Because construction, that's why I saw that the numbers run, but I could be wrong.
I would have to look at the FTIP to see if there was a construction engineering component in that. I believe these are all construction dollars.
Yeah, I think the construction engineering was included, but we can certainly check.
Okay, and then I just had one more, sorry. So it said it was estimated at $791, but we received $700,000. Does that mean we're going to see down the road to make up that gap?
It is, but that's included in the 100 and whatever.
Okay, it is. Okay.
Okay, any other council comments? Any public comment?
You already had public comment.
I'm sorry, I did. You didn't say anything.
I move approval.
Okay, motion then.
I move approval.
Okay, we have 1 no and 4 yeses.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item number 11. Proposed action to approve a resolution requesting authorization to record final parcel map 12200. Mr. Cope.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, this is a final action for approval of the final parcel map for the Warren Automotive project along China Lake Boulevard. The Warrens have successfully satisfied all the conditions of approval as established by the Planning Commission as the tentative map approval, with the exception of monumentation in which they've given us a check as a security to make sure the final monumentation is complete, as well as the other exception is the annexation into the lighting landscape maintenance district prior to recordation, in which case there is a improvement agreement that has been prepared in which the Warrens have signed that they've agreed to annex into the lighting landscape maintenance district at the time in which the first occupancy permit for any of the parcels might be issued. So with that, we have checked the map, found it to be complete. All the improvements have been constructed. So with that, we're asking the City Council to accept the necessary survey monumentation check as security. We're asking you to authorize the city manager to sign the improvement agreement. We're asking the council to accept the street improvements and offers of dedications that are made on the map. We're asking the city council to authorize the city engineer, city clerk, and planning commission secretary to go ahead and sign the final parcel map. And we're also asking you to direct the city clerk to record the final parcel map 12200 with the county recorder's office. And with that, I'm available for any questions the council might have.
Questions from council? Questions from the public? Motion?
Yes, I move. So
Second.
approved. Yep.
5 yeses.
Motion carries.
Peggy, you're supposed to let her report that.
All right, you record it, please. This is new. I didn't realize we were doing it that
5
way.
ayes, motion carries.
Rick always did that.
Yes,
Rick always did
that's why I was trying to help. Thank you. Okay, public hearing. Public hearing and approval of resolutions to take the next and final steps to complete the formation of District Number 218-2 and the concurrent annexation process for Annexation 218-2. And I am going to open the public hearing. Sir?
Honorable Mayor, yes, this is the final steps for the annexation of the lighting landscape maintenance district for the tract 7188. And what we are asking the City Council to do is to, first of all, to open the public hearing regarding the district formation, and we're asking the City Council to hear any public testimony or any written testimony that might be an objection to the annexation. And then on the conclusion of the public hearing and testimony, we're asking you, Honorable Mayor, to close the public hearing, of course, and direct the city clerk to open the tabulated ballots. And upon the tabulation, we are asking the City Council to approve the resolution which does identify the results of the balloting. And then based upon the balloting, if there is a majority of ballots that indicate to protesting the assessment district, no further action is taken. If the assessment district is successful, then we ask you then to approve the final resolution that confirms the balloting and confirms the formation of the lighting landscape and maintenance district. So at this time, Honorable Mayor, I'd ask you to open up the public hearing for any public testimony or any written protests that might be issued to the city clerk.
Yeah.
And that I am doing, opening the hearing. Is there any?
Madam Mayor, can we take a short break? The ballot's actually upstairs. We got to go grab it.
Okay, thank
Can
you.
we take maybe a 5-minute break?
5-minute break, everybody. Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah,
only
that
nine-
dawned
it's only
on me at one
9:50.
point. I was like, good night. How is it so late already? And then I was like, that clock's an hour off.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I mentioned that.
I saw
Okay, Wallace, can we get back up? We're going to call a meeting back to order, please. Okay, so we have opened the public hearing, and we are going to receive comments. Are there any comments from the public on this particular item? Okay, no comments from the public on the item. I will close the public hearing, and we will direct the city clerk to tabulate the ballots.
You let him get close to you with a knife? Knife in his hand? You have credentials? You got a permit to carry that weapon?
Yes, in favor of proposed maximum assessment.
One.
The ballot says yes, in favor of proposed maximum assessment for my parcel.
One ballot.
One ballot. Okay.
Could we have a recount?
We can't count that high, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, then we are, where are we with this then?
The next resolution is just simply to validate the results of the balloting. All it does is confirm
Are you on?
No.
the next action is simply to approve the resolution which confirms the ballot, that it is a successful ballot in favor of. So
All right,
you have resolution that follows here. It's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest declaring the results of the property owner protest ballot proceedings. That's the resolution that you'll be approving. And all that does is confirm the results of the ballot.
Okay.
So move.
Yeah. Second. Do we need to read it, or are we good? Okay.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Honorable
right.
Mayor, the next item of action is then the resolution confirms the formation of the Landscape Lighting District 2018-2. That's your next resolution, and that's your final action to be
So
taken.
moved.
Second.
Okay.
I think we might have to do a verbal because he only put it up once, is what he's hand motioning.
You have to call a roll.
All right, Rika. Oh, Heather, sorry.
Councilwoman Stevens?
Aye.
Councilman Martin?
Aye.
Mayor Breeden?
Aye.
Councilman Thomas?
Aye.
Councilman Mauer?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next item, committee reports. City Org.
Did not meet.
Finance Committee?
Are we going to meet?
Are you saying you did not meet?
I said, are we going to meet? That's Thanksgiving week. I'm available.
We're available. I'm available.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll be meeting a week from Monday.
All right. Next item is Infrastructure Committee.
Haven't met yet.
Parks and Rec?
We did meet. We had a special meeting because of the election. We met last Tuesday, and we discussed bathroom facilities and are waiting on some more information to come back.
Okay, Youth Advisory Council. Did anybody meet?
Mr. McLaughlin. Yeah, they
We'll go to the next one.
I don't know, where is he at?
The Action Committee,
We only meet twice a year.
okay. RACVB.
No.
Economic Development.
Haven't met.
Okay, we will come back if Jed has something, we will come back to that. Other committees, boards, or commissions, anybody's report?
I have one, excuse me, I have one, Madam Mayor and Council, and the Eastern Kern Air Pollution Control District met on last Thursday at 2 o'clock at the county building, and one of the things we talked about was the reappointment of Mr. Charles Arbat as a member of the EKAP-CD hearing board for 3-year terms that would expire in 2022. And that was pretty much it.
Okay, any other meetings? Okay, city manager's report.
Nothing to report this time.
Future agenda items.
The reporting on the development impact fee deferral for the hotels, and then for the Measure B.
I think he has a report on that now.
Right.
Yeah, I believe, according to Heather, the hotel on the south end of China Lake near Upjohn just paid their fees, and they have a request in for the release of lien. And I do not believe we have the answer yet for the one adjacent to the car wash. And I think there's a possibility that we didn't defer those. Only
I'm
the
not
other
sure.
one.
I don't think we deferred. I think we only deferred
We
one.
didn't. I don't think we
Yeah,
did.
so I guess
Yeah.
your question is answered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay, mayor and council comments. Anybody?
I just wanted to thank staff for taking care of getting the senior center patrons the free bus ride to Inyo Kern. Thanks for doing that.
Anybody else? Thank you. I thank all of you for voting. And the next item is adjournment, and so we are adjourned.
9:30. No, not according to that clock.
Well, that clock is
Based
wrong.
on that clock. Yes,